Welcome to Geekin' Out. I'm your host, Moose. As you can see, there's not my co-host, Sleaze, here today. But we have our special guest again, Tony. We have an even specialer guest guy that named Dutch over here.
I'm even specialer.
He's a specialer guy. If you have any info or anything about what you want to add to the show or any show ideas, you can email us at geekinoutpodcast at outlook.com. And we're going to be going over some news today. We're going to actually talk about tabletop gaming. All three of us have been DM/GMs before and players, so hopefully it'll be a good conversation.
Just to branch out in the Star Wars thing.
Yeah, we're going to change the dial, so to speak, a little bit
talk
today.
about more geeky stuff.
Yeah. Still geeking out, of course, but, you know.
And to be fair, it's a lot of it's Star Wars D20 systems.
Shut up!
Yeah.
Don't make that comparison.
So we're still staying in the vein of Star Wars.
Staying in our lane, so to speak. So the news that I wanted to bring up was that Rian Johnson, the director of the new trilogy, said it's not going to be about the Old Republic. I know some of our speculation that it was going to be the Old Republic, but he shot that down. And the quote from him was, what's really fun is the notion of what new stuff are we going to see? What new stories can we tell? The possibility in a new story told over 3 movies. Go anywhere, do anything. Sky's the limit in Star Wars. That's so exciting. So
You sound super excited. That is so exciting.
So this just goes back to what I was sort of...
I want a book on tape now.
Who doesn't? Yeah. This goes back to what I was saying. I think it's going to be something totally new, like, after the fact. Since they're not going to go Old Republic, I mean, what else could it be as far
Do you
as...
think they're just going to make something up completely, not even canon, like what we know of as post-BBY stuff, or even
I hear he's going to the unknown regions.
Right.
To do these movies. So there's no
Skywalkers.
Skywalkers.
Nothing to do with the Skywalker saga or anything like that, so...
But it's probably nothing that's even been touched on.
Yeah, that's what
it
in
seems
general
like.
At all.
I mean, there's not much. It was literally just announced, like 2 weeks ago or something, that a trilogy was going to be made after Episode 10, so there's probably not much groundwork.
Oh, and I got my tickets, so I'm excited to actually get to go to see this with you. It'll be good.
Yeah, I will not be able to go to that. I have to wait until Monday to see it. What a disgrace.
You're a fan? Oh.
It's the only movie I still go to the theaters for.
Yeah, me too.
It's a Star Wars movie. Otherwise, it's like, I'll just wait till it comes on Netflix or HBO.
Yeah, I might have to agree on that now that I think about it.
Yeah. So basically, last episode, we said there might be a chance of a Periscope before Last Jedi and then a reaction sort of podcast. That's official. It's going to happen. Me, Dutch, Tony, like you said, he's not going to be there, but we'll actually have 4 other guests with us, including the Sleaze. And we're going to have a crossover from the Dr. Hugenstein show, or Dr. Huge show. They do like a wrestling podcast, so they're going to be on it as guests. So we're going to have 6 people here on set, or in studio, whatever you want to say. And it's going to be a fucking awesome conversation, hopefully. So essentially, right after the movie, we're going to come here and fucking talk about it.
Awesome.
So that's only 2 news things I have to bring up. You guys have anything else for news or anything like that you want to bring up?
No.
Okay, fair enough. I guess I'll run the show then. So again, we're going to talk about tabletop generally, and we have just some questions we'll be going over. So the first question is pretty generic, but what got you guys into tabletop gaming in the first place?
I actually I started working at this place. They did metal fabrication or something like that, and one of the dudes that worked there, he ran a D&D game, and it sounded super interesting. And like while we were supposed to be working, I would like create the backstory for my character and tell him about it, and like we'd actually talk about D&D stuff and like not work as much. So like our bosses weren't super psyched about it, but It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun at first, but it's just at the end, like I didn't like his style of DMing, so we ended up partying on bad terms, but we're not. We don't hate each other like we used to.
Is this where you developed? You said once. I still can't remember it. It's killing me, but now it's a good time to bring it up. You said there was a syndrome or something that you developed. Not you, but you came up with it where you think you're as tough as the character you've created.
That's one of the symptoms. One of the symptoms of basement dementia.
Basement dementia
is dyslexia. And that is when you think you're as tough as the character you're playing, and you talk shit to somebody else in the group, and you risk getting beat up in real life.
That's so good.
That's great.
That is fucking excellent.
Yeah, there's a lot of symptoms to basement dementia.
So dyslexia is one of them.
Dyslexia is one of the many, yes. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. That's
I've loved it. Ever since you told me that years ago, and I was just like, that's fucking good.
all these phrases have been coined by my friend Steve. He's
Keith's brother?
Yeah, Keith's brother, yeah. He's a genius with that sort of thing.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Hats off to him for that one. Shout out to Steve.
Why isn't he here instead of you?
Yeah.
Good question. Good question.
I'm the specialer guest, so you have to go.
He's a specialer, yeah.
Just to give you an idea of what Steve's like, you ever like see a number everywhere you go, like it just repeats for some reason.
Yeah, numbers are everywhere.
No, I mean like one particular. For me, it's like 7-3. I see 7. It's basically your pattern recognition software has remembered a particular number for whatever reason. And you seem to seek it out wherever you go. You find it subconsciously.
Isn't that a Jim Carrey movie?
I don't know. But anyway,
something like that. Yeah.
I saw Steve's number on a license plate, so I took a picture of it and sent it to him.
His phone number?
No, the number he sees, everywhere he goes, right? So I took a picture of it and sent it to him, and he goes, that's proof that the universe is talking to me. And quite honestly, I don't blame it.
That's great.
Anyway. So what got you into gaming?
Actually, it's kind of funny. I don't remember when this was. Around like high school age, I had gotten up with a few guys that were playing, I want to say 3rd edition D&D, maybe 2nd edition.
That's when I started, 3.5.
Was it? Yeah, I think it was just before that, but it was before the visual effects were all there. It was very much the theater of mind sort of play. So it was like notebooks, and the DM was basically an author talking, going through. But the thing was, I had a little bit of a revelation at that point. Now, mind you, you remember me back at this point in time. I was probably like fucking 42 pounds soaking wet. I had long hair, and my hair is super thick and super wavy, so it looked retarded. Hence the specialer guest portion, I guess, maybe. But and I had my glasses were like thick Coke bottle glasses. Hilarious look. I looked like a time traveler from the 70s who even still wasn't cool at any point in time.
Who wasn't cool in the 70s and is less cool now.
Yeah. And I wore shirts with dragons on them and shit, so it was really
So you
bad.
ran the D&D thing. It was perfect.
Yeah, it was weird. Like, it was meant to be, but just not then. Because then it hit me as I was sitting there making my character. I was like, this is what people make fun of. This, like what you said when you were like, that sounds interesting. That's the nerd response. Most people are like, that sounds stupid. And that's when, like, that's why it becomes a geek and a nerd thing, I guess. But when I sat there, and it was me, and it was 3 other guys. It was the DM and 2 of my buddies. And we're making this character, and I said, I just want to point out this, like, while other people are out talking to girls and having friends and stuff, we're in this basement talking about elves and goblins. I was like, but the thing is I kind of kicked myself in the ass for it, is that they never played again after that. Oh. So I feel like I kind of was like invited and then shit on the whole thing. And then
said they didn't play. They said they didn't play.
That could have been what it was. But then what sucked was like years later, like I played Magic the Gathering and stuff afterwards, because like anyone who has like an idea of like fantasy, like if fantasy stuff appeals to them, Lord of the Rings and stuff like that, you kind of like it's ingrained in your psyche, like to play games like that or to do things like that. And playing Magic was fun, and then that kind of fell to the wayside. And then afterwards, I forgot what it was, but I started playing Magic again. Then you and I started playing, and we got Bear involved, and then from there, it was like a stone's throw from Dungeons and Dragons. It was like the next logical step. You're already like crafting a spell book and competing in tournaments and stuff. So we started doing D&D, and then it dawned on me, like, the revelation was, now I get it. First you get the woman, then you start playing the nerdy games, and that's
the house, and you get to have a place to play.
Yes.
You got to set up a big foundation.
Yeah. Yep.
Make sure she's really, really invested.
Exactly.
Then you pull out all the Star Wars toys.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, by the way, I have a room with just Star Wars stuff in it.
This is
And
Chewbacca. I speak fucking Wookiee.
I
I'm
speak
fluent in Wookiee.
My wedding
Klingon.
vows are going to be in Klingon.
I've stolen a couple of lines from Game of Thrones for our wedding vows. You had no idea.
It's the fun of it all. Like when you go through the 9 to 5, like the fucking day-to-day work and all that other stuff like that, to all of a sudden just pretend, like in your game, for instance, just to pretend that you're a Jedi from Planet Doran. It's just it's fun. It makes it fun to really invest into a character. It's kind of, I could see how people kind of like poo-poo the idea too of being an alien or something. Yeah, I know. Well, I was trying to be
Poo-poo.
I don't know, like I feel like I see a point. Like if they don't like to do it, then they definitely shouldn't do it. But for the people who do like it, it's, I don't know, man. It just pulls.
It's so much fun.
It is.
It's imagination.
Yeah, like I think the fact that you have a group of people there, and they are all coming together to tell a story together, and like you pointed this out earlier, the DM or the GM creates the framework,
Right.
which was the terminology I couldn't get out. But you said to me, oh, they create the framework. I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. Like you just create like a little catalyst as the DM or GM to get the thing going, and then the rest of everybody comes in, and you all kind of create this thing together.
Put up the walls and all that sort of.
Yeah.
It seems like if you
Metaphor.
if you enjoy reading and like immersing yourself in like a I hate to say nonfiction, because there was a point in time where I was like totally against reading nonfiction books. I don't know why. I just thought it was a waste of time. But even still, like if you enjoy reading history or any kind of mythology, medieval stuff, anything like that, it's a natural thing into like a D&D type of scenario with with barbarians and sorcerers and stuff like that. But I think what it is like as a DM or a GM, being that the three of us have run games before, you kind of create the plot to a character-driven story. You know, like some stories are plot-driven, some stories are character-driven. I've always thought that the best stories are character-driven, no matter what. If you can follow a person through their life, it's far more interesting than a plot. I think it's easier to pull off, too, but it's more satisfying. A plot-driven one...
It's more real. It's not just like...
exactly. You can relate. You can relate to a character-driven story.
The plot is something the characters do while they're developing them.
Exactly. And it's so fun, though, to have, like what you were just saying, a bunch of different people playing different characters to achieve a certain end. It's just...
Right.
Like, how many games have you run where what you thought was going to happen ended up just being completely off the fucking rails?
One of the last games we played where you guys...
Yeah,
I had a whole... I had a whole thing planned out, and then you guys got into your in-game fight, and that... Well, it didn't start out as a fight, it just started out as a disagreement, but it, that took the whole game. And, like, yeah, I had a lot of stuff prepared, but at the same time, like, I totally wanted to see what fucking happened.
When we were driving home, and I was telling him the best part of all that, even though, like, we could pat ourselves on the back, 'cause I really do think that was some good role-playing, like, fucking tooting my own horn on that one, like, we did good.
Yeah.
Your reaction was the best to it.
Because
you can make the GM go, oh, shit, to, like, the guy next to
your
him.
face, like, constantly, like, oh, shit.
I kept looking at Mark and Charlie like, oh.
They couldn't care less to see me. You're just like, this is...
sweet, you can just sit around.
I've been waiting for this. To
That's-
be honest with you, not to interrupt you, but to be honest with you, if any other two guys were going to have a fight in game, I think I would have stopped it, because it would have been. I don't think the other guys couldn't handle it. I totally think they could, but like the situation and the fact that you guys are like old friends, like. I knew that this was just happening in game. There was no tension between
There's no
you.
dyslexia with us. No.
That's right.
He'll fuck me up. I've got no qualms about. I mean, my Jedi beat his Jedi's ass, but I'm not. There's no. The ride home was very docile. He's choked me out on his floor.
I made sure not to talk shit while we were in an enclosed area and had nowhere to fucking run.
We wrestled in his basement once, and my throat took about 4 weeks to heal from the chokehold, so I'm good.
Yeah. 4 weeks.
That's why I own guns.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was
totally.
going to say before you rudely interrupted me.
Yeah, but
He's an asshole. Huh? You gotta
Well, that's
deal
one
with
thing we
this
can talk
every
about later too. Is characters not being afraid to confront other characters or other PCs.
Right.
You know, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's a PC. It's a real person. I can't attack them. I can't, be an asshole towards them. I can't act this way towards
They
them
take it
because they're
personal.
real."
They take it personal.
Not only that,
Yeah.
but it's like those people are off limits. When in reality, how many times in your game was I really thinking about leaving as far as the character goes?
No.
Right.
Like, I'm getting the fuck out of this. This isn't what I'm about in the game. I'm leaving.
And that was totally within character of your character.
Right.
I think
Sorry.
Good save.
even though like Wookiees are known for being angry and raging out or whatever, as far as from my experience, your Wookiee was the most Zen-like, Jedi-like character.
Very Jedi about
Yeah.
the whole thing. Yeah.
He's very diplomatic for the most part. I think of all the people I've seen try to play a Jedi, I think you've come the closest to actual Jedi-ish type of nature.
Well, before I answer my own question, like this guy.
Not like this guy.
I answered my own question?
No, before I answer my own question about how I got into tabletop gaming.
Oh.
But just to keep this going so I don't forget. He approached me to enter your game.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I want to be a Jedi, and I'm going to try to go down the Jedi route as close as possible and just see where it goes. So, as far as in-game turns, go Jedi, Jedi Knight, and then Jedi Master eventually, and stay down that path. And that was my goal. Like, it's easy. I think it's easy to be an asshole in game and just blow things up, kill people, and all that stuff.
Right.
That's easy. I wanted to try to, not put my limit, but put a good emphasis and, hardship on myself to keep that role playing going as far as the Jedi goes.
Which is probably one of the best parts. Is like in your life, like you'll wake up, you've got kids, wife, house, all the things to take care of. You got a job, things to focus on, things to learn, things to know. But then to go out and have like this fantasy moral code that you have to uphold in a game,
yeah.
like it's fun to test yourself in that way too. Like, I don't know, it's just like stepping out of reality for a minute.
I totally agree with you, both of you, because yeah, it's easy to be an asshole in game, and I think that's why I always try to veer more towards characters that have like some kind of moral code and are good. Because I'm an asshole in real life,
Yeah.
I can do that
'Cause once
easy.
again,
That's
it's
just
easy.
natural.
It's easy,
That's
yeah.
just natural. I'm a douchebag. I know it. I try not to be. It's
I'm trying
not
to
a
play
purpose.
something else, not myself. So
Exactly.
Yeah, so like I wouldn't say like it's hard to play a good character, but it is hard to play a good character
Yeah.
sometimes. It's hard
It's
to
more challenging for sure.
definitely more challenging for me at least,
it's probably relatively across the board, unless you're just like a general good person, and, all that sort of stuff. Maybe that would be easier for you, but
Yeah, maybe good people.
our
like-
group is not that. So
Our group. Which
It's-
group?
both groups.
We have some good
there's
players
not-
in there.
No, I don't mean. I don't
That's
think
true. Yeah,
anyone's
both
like,
of your games actually. Now that you mentioned that, it just dawned on me. Like, I'd say yours a little less because you're the only one that really like leaned towards that good side. Because before him, was the only other Jedi character that existed prior to me coming in.
Was
Karanthar was
Karanthar.
trying to like really toe that line, but he wasn't. He wasn't capable because of like the other two characters and the other three characters really and then even myself coming in, because with him and I having like the same like the story that was developed around us.
Right.
I came off from a very different perspective. My thing is like I like to apply the shit that I believe in to it. Like I'll play a video game, for instance. This is just a little side note, I guess. I'll play a video game, and if the video game choice goes against what I would pick, I fucking don't finish the game. Like I wouldn't sit there and compromise what I would do in that situation if that was me, because that's what I like to do. I like to invest in it. Like if I'm playing Zelda and I'm Link, I'm fucking Link. You know what I mean? Like it's me.
Yeah.
I'm Link.
Right.
I'm there doing this stuff. So if they play a game and they're like, I don't know, do X or Y, and I'm like, I'd rather do Z. I would rather go. That's why, like, I've been playing Skyrim for about 275 years, because the game is just—it's like a never-ending option. It's like a one-man D&D campaign to try to pull it full circle to your tabletop gaming thing. It's like the closest I've seen to an actual one-man D&D session.
Well, that's what's like to me, and probably you guys can agree, is better than a video game. Like video games are open world to an extent, but this you can do. I mean, you try to stay in line with the GM/DM's plan, but you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Literally.
You can literally just be like, I'm out of here. This fucking sucks. And okay, let's build a new character.
Do you remember
when my guy fucking bounced or whatever?
When you first started playing, I think it was when you first started playing with in my game. I had said to everybody, because I started to realize that people came from different perspectives. Like people that weren't into tabletop gaming usually had like they like games from a video game standpoint. They like the storyline and plot. They wanted to go like from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 and so on and so forth. And I don't mean level like leveling up. I mean level like World 1-1 in Mario or something. You know what I mean?
Oh right.
So you see like the video game gamers. Then you see the people that are invested in characters.
They're like on mission. Like okay, I only have this one choice. I have to go kill these 10 rabbits or something.
Exactly.
I have to go kill this boss. That's the only thing I can do right now.
Yep.
I can't go say fuck that boss and go over here.
And the way I worded it, I had a map set out, and you know they're running around doing their thing, and I said I want to make sure you guys understand, like this game isn't it's open world. You can do whatever you want, and there was a carpet on the map, and I said if you wanted to roll that carpet up and walk out, steal it, sell it, do whatever, I was like that's a fucking option.
Right.
You can do that. Like, don't think. Like, I remember one time you guys were trapped in a dumpster. Well, it wasn't a dumpster, but, like, I don't know, some little pit or some shit.
It was like a trash thing.
And all you had to do, like, from a DM perspective, you guys both understand, like, you know what's going to happen. Like, you know what's going on. You know the movements of the NPCs and all this other stuff. And I'm looking at them like, okay, you happen to be in that room as this, like, you know, ABC villain are fucking walking through doing their rounds, but you're hidden. And we're going full round turns, and it got to a point where a couple people were like, well, they're not leaving, we have to attack them. And in my head, though, I'm like, I'm not going to intrude, it's not my point to intrude. So I'm like, but I know that if you give it one more fucking turn, they're going to go to the next room. Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to fight, it's not all about combat.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my biggest not issue, but my struggle, I should say, with first starting playing, which was that
It's
game.
tough to wrap your head around.
Was being like, this is open world. I can do whatever I want and not take the sort of, you know, PC gaming or Xbox gaming or whatever concept of it. Like, there's someone in front of me that's a threat, I have to kill it. Like, thinking that I can do whatever I want. That was the hardest part to wrap my head around, basically.
Yeah.
But once I got it, it was like, this was easy. It was just a matter of getting to that point.
So what got you into gaming?
Thank you. Appreciate that.
This is why you've been on so many episodes so far.
Like you said earlier, you know, going
And I'm still
through,
not a fucking co-host. Whatever. I'm just messing with you.
Anyway, we'll have that off air, guys.
Contracted negotiations.
You're gonna be making so much less. You keep that up. So, like you said earlier, you know, in high school, like I heard, you know, overhearing some nerd tables talk about D&D, Magic, and stuff. It's like these guys are fucking gay. Like I don't want to be a part of this group. Like, you know what I mean? Like those are the kids you made fun of in
Because
high
in
school.
high school it's a stereotype.
Yeah, it's like,
It
fuck?
doesn't sit well.
And same thing, like you said too. Like, oh, I want to go hang out with my friends, play football, pick up girls, go play basketball, whatever the case may be, go hang out. And then I realized, like, I wish I was with them because they were having fun. They didn't give a shit about what was going on. Right. They had their, like, just think if we were all kids playing D&D for, you know, however old we are now.
Awesome.
20, 30 years or whatever it is now, like, it'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like, how much would you learn? How much would you, like, how many experiences could you pull off of?
To be honest with you, it wasn't until my 40s that I was willing to admit it in public. Like, if one of my friends who did nerd stuff mentioned D&D in public, I would be like, yes, I love Dunkin' Donuts coffee. Shut the fuck up.
That girl's hot. Like, try to talk about something else.
Stop talking about nerd shit. There are people here.
I think it's about just being like...
Just give him a wedgie on instinct.
This guy, get out of here. You're walking home. But I think it's just being, finding a group that is cool with it too and just going with them. You know what I mean? So my first tabletop thing was in his game, playing D&D. And like I said, it was the hardest part, just trying to figure out it's open world and do what the fuck else you want. And I couldn't really wrap my head around like all the skills and stuff like that and when to use them and all that. That was all different to me. It was different than just pressing a friggin' key and I shoot this arrow, but now I can hide behind this building in the game and shoot an arrow and have some cover and stuff like that. It was like
you could actually put yourself into the character and use those abilities. It's weird to think of like you press buttons on a controller or on a keyboard to do something, but there's like what fucking 20 buttons, we'll say tops, that you're gonna use to do something. But with tabletop gaming and role playing games in general, you've got unlimited options. You can do damn near anything.
Yeah, you only have X amount of skills, but you can do whatever you want, basically.
Yeah. And you can have like an hour go by, 2 hours go by, and no one rolled a damn thing.
Absolutely.
You've been role playing the whole time. You still got a ton of shit done.
Mm-hmm. And some of those sessions are the best sessions. Too, that you
feel
the most, like you accomplish the most or whatever. I mean, not to the effect of, for instance, okay, this bridge over here in front of us, should we cross it or not? Let's have a fucking 3-hour conversation about should we cross it.
Which has happened.
That shit.
Yes, it has.
Is super fucking annoying. Yeah.
That shit is just like retarded. But when it's actually like moral code versus like a different moral code or something, and trying to see what was going on with that, that's different.
That bridge thing, acceptable. Which I know we're going to get into later, but that is the sort of thing that ends up being a house rule.
But that's different than what I'm saying, like just a basic bridge, like bridge could fall, who knows, sort of thing. That you knew a threat was there, so you knew exactly what was on the other side, so to speak, and you knew another threat was coming. So
yeah,
we talking about our game? We talking about our game?
Yeah,
bridge. Because I was drunk by the midpoint of that one.
You're gonna have to be more specific about which game that was.
No, you are, because I don't remember shit.
But even back to the question.
Why do I drink so much of your games?
Because they're bad, apparently. They're terrible. The only way I get through them is getting cocked.
I like to get in character.
Even when you first started your game, though, I was like, I don't want to play. You know what I mean? It took, I don't know, a couple months or something for me to be like, okay, I'll try it, sort of thing. Like, even first instinct was like, I don't want to play this. Like, this sounds stupid. But I got into it for one reason or another, and, haven't looked back.
I have a subscription to Game Informer, and, I mean, I don't really know how to judge it, like, as a magazine in general. So far, I've enjoyed it. So, I mean, I guess I can give, like, a shout-out to Game Informer or something. But the one thing I really like...
They're paying us. They're sponsors.
They're a sponsor, yeah. Don't sue anybody.
Yeah, don't sue anybody. Tens of
this
viewers.
This is a hobby
anyone.
podcast. It's not a fucking monetized one. But in one of the Game Informers, it was, like, top fucking 100... I want to say it was role-playing games of all time. So you go through and, like, I was actually excited because, like, the top 10 list had 2 of my favorite games of all time. Final Fantasy 3, which always, like, for some reason always dominates, which makes me feel happy because I love that shit since I was, like a kid, I couldn't judge anything. I could barely... I was, like, potty trained at that point in time, and I loved that game. But Baldur's Gate, which is an actual D&D based game to begin with, that game is fucking... That game set the standard for me for any kind of game after that fact. But number 1 was Skyrim, and like I said, that's a one-person D&D campaign. I fucking love it. But they gave a special shout out. They went through like 100 to 1, but then for 0 it said Dungeons and Dragons, because without that, and this is what I said to you, is my sales pitch to you to get you to playing. You love World of Warcraft, Diablo.
Right.
I was like, all of the games that you enjoy playing would not exist if not for the game that we're playing right now.
Oh, yeah.
So fucking play it. Let's just
When,
get into it.
When I started playing Knights of the Old Republic, when I got into it, I was just like, oh, this works off a D20 system. I got like it was super. Like I got the rules and the math of that really quick, because it's like, oh, it's same stats, strength, intelligence, blah blah blah, and because I was familiar with that D20 system and started playing Knights of the Old Republic, like it was just easier to get into, and it was easier to like. Because I had a basic idea of what the rules were, it was easy to go in and tweak my character and his lightsaber and stuff like that.
Build them the way you want and stuff, yeah.
Exactly. That was an awesome game. Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, absolutely.
That was...
Those, actually, Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic, the second
2.
one, those were both in the top, like, 20, I want to say. For the
Oh, no kidding.
I mean, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure they were quite high on the list. But, I mean, why wouldn't they be?
Both of our RPG games happen in the time frame of those games. Right now.
Because Darth Revan is God.
Darth Revan is pretty awesome. Which Darth Revan actually knighted
Me?
your character in my game.
Love it.
We should have took pictures of that.
I thought we did.
No, I had it all set up with the council and everything,
man.
and we didn't take any
Revan
pictures.
was there. Malik was there. Who was the...
Ziola Jin was there.
Yeah, but who... Oh, my God.
Quilo, my character, was there from another Star Wars game.
But the trinity of them. There was Darth... Oh, shit. Not Revan either. It was... Who was that trinity? They kicked out. They exiled one.
Nihilus, Darth Nihilus, Darth Kreia, and Darth Sion.
Kreia. It was Kreia that I was thinking of.
Was she there?
I thought she was for some reason.
Okay.
Maybe not.
I don't remember.
We'll just say she was to make my
That was
character
like
even
3 or
cooler.
4 years ago, so...
It was a long
Darth
time
Vader
ago.
was there.
Vader,
Sidious,
Yoda,
fucking Darth
Sidious,
Maul.
fucking Jar Jar Binks was there serving drinks.
Well, where we're
Jar Jar
moving...
drinks, they wow.
The time frame we're moving into now is after all that stuff where Revan invaded and the whole 9 yards. Now that triumvirate is...
That's what the word was, triumvirate.
That triumvirate is actually in charge of what the Sith.
Sith,
So the time frame we're moving into now with these new characters, that's
it's
Darth
after
Treya,
Revan,
Darth
after
Sion,
Malik.
and sorry,
After Revan, after Malik. Sort
Yeah.
of.
This is the Jedi Purge, right? That's what it's called. Was the Jedi Purge? Was at that
I
point?
think so.
Wasn't
Yeah.
that right after Revan kind of came back?
Yeah,
or
there's
whatever?
very few Jedi that are around right now.
So, and that's where we are now.
Do you guys want to talk about something solo while I go and use the bathroom? I hate to do
Solo?
it to you, but yeah, there's this.
Sure. While we're talking, if you want to think about how to prepare before the campaign.
How to what? Prepare.
What do you
for
do
a campaign?
before
to
a
prepare
campaign?
for a campaign?
All right, I'm gonna roll a d20 piss check.
Lap dance. This is the wrong channel.
Sexist. All right, I'm gonna move to the middle.
All right.
Oh, I'm lopsided.
Lopsided.
There we go.
That's your face.
All right.
So the question: how to prepare? Like, how would you prepare before a campaign?
There's
some
lots
things
of
we do.
things I do to prepare. So it just depends how deep you want me to go. Like just a particular
All the
game
way.
or the whole campaign.
Balls deep.
Balls deep. All right. So to start a campaign, one of the first things I kind of make my players do is create a little backstory, and you have carte blanche, however you're not supposed to pronounce that word, on what you want to do. You can make it a paragraph long. You can make it a book long. I'm not going to read it if it's a book.
Right.
But if it's a paragraph, I just need a paragraph or two just to give me an idea of where you want to go with your character. And this is paramount. You need to get in the headspace of your player, because those couple little paragraphs in there may seem innocuous or just like, oh, this is where my character is from. It may seem like not a big deal to your character, but you're gonna use this against your character, your player.
Right.
You're gonna use stuff in there to mess with your player's head, and that's how you're gonna get him engaged. You
and
take
also have, not to cut you off, but also
go ahead.
have like encounters or sessions or whatever you want to call them, specifically for that backstory.
Yeah.
So the characters are more involved in the whole plot and the whole story and campaign.
Perfect example is what you did to my character in the game you're running. I had a backstory. We hadn't touched on it much, but in the game, you put this little statue that was from the temple of where my character studied the Force, and
that changed your whole perspective of
yeah,
what you wanted to do.
We had a plan of what we were gonna do, and then once I figured out what that was, I totally went Leroy Jenkins on the whole thing.
And basically, for the audience, I'll explain a little bit. The whole premise of our last session was that there was a Jedi that was going to be auctioned off, the highest bidder sort of thing. There was two like Sith Lords or Sith or Darksiders that were running the campaign or running the auction. And what I did as a GM, DM, whatever you want to call it, I guess a GM, to throw a monkey wrench in their idea of just going there and basically being the highest bidder and buying the Jedi. I gave his backstory is he's like a monk, and he got taken into slavery. He's from unknown regions. So I took like a artifact from his temple and put it into like this office space, and he felt it through the Force.
Right.
And he was basically, we wanted to go right to it and get the thing. He didn't give a shit about the Jedi anymore. He didn't care about anything.
And
I'll
like,
let him explain it further.
and the thing was, is like, myself and two other players had crafted this, not elaborate plan, but a pretty decent plan, and we're sitting at the table, we're discussing it, and as soon as it clicked that my character figured out what that was, I was like, I get up, I go over to the fire escape thingy, I climb the fire escape, and I just started going to town. I just blasted two people off the fire escape. I started attacking the other people, and you know, it wasn't chaos after that, but I mean, it
started all the fighting, really.
Yeah, it started all the fighting.
It could have
right.
one route to go for you guys, obviously, would just be in like, okay, we're going to go down to the auction, we're going to sit down, we're going to auction for the Jedi and the people we knew in the auction as well, and it would all be smooth and no fighting. Like, it could have been a total no actual fighting session.
Right.
But
yeah.
it turned into a bloodbath, essentially. So.
The ironic part is, my character's usually like, let's have a plan, which is what I started out doing.
Yeah.
And your character is usually like, Leroy Jenkins! And it was totally opposite this time. I went Leroy Jenkins on everything. But it was good, because I didn't expect it, and I didn't even think about it once you said it. As soon as I realized what it was, I was like, shit's...
Well, at first, 'cause I made him do like a use the Force check. At first, you didn't roll that great, so I was like, it's something you
kind of recognize. It's on the tip
but
of
you're
my
not
tongue.
sure if it's a person or item or what it is.
Right.
The second time, you rolled really shitty, so I was like, you don't notice anything different. The third time, you got like something like a 36 or something.
That was
ridiculous.
the one I initiated myself, because
Right.
I like, apparently there was some twinge in the Force that I was feeling, but I really wasn't quite getting it. And I was like, well, this time I want to know. I'm not going to wait for you, because obviously
I
you've
was
hinted.
throwing you fucking hints, but
Right,
I was just like,
exactly. Like that's exactly. I was like, okay, so I need to follow up on this myself to figure out what's going to happen.
So that one, I was like, okay, this is what it is. You feel it's from this area. You know relatively where it is on the whole grand scheme of the map and all that crap. So it worked out pretty well.
So that's what I do to prepare for like a big campaign. As far as like each individual game, I pretty much have an idea of where each episode, I call them episodes or games or whatever. I have an idea of where everything's going to go, like a big outline, and then I try to pin it down piece by piece and get to that end point. So usually I have a basic idea of what's going to happen in the game, and then usually I'll just go through some books and get some like token baddies, throw those in, maybe some environmental challenges or something like that. But for the most part, I try not to be too rigid with those sort of things, because at any point in the game, whatever you fucking planned could go completely off rails.
Right.
And you could end up not even touching what was there.
I was thinking for your game, the rule would be you could have any kind of plan, but then Mosby could shoot somebody. And that's pretty much it.
But it's funny you bring that up because there was one game we had where the crew was going to infiltrate this compound. And I'm thinking like, okay, I prepared everything for you guys to go into this compound and sneak around and take surveillance and recon and shit like that. And Charlie goes, how about if we sell a couple of our people to the group?
Yeah, the Trandoshans, right?
Yeah, as prisoners, you know,
I
like...
wasn't there for this.
Yeah, so it was basically, there was this group of Trandoshans who were cannibals, which is not out of the range of what Transoceans are like. But this was like a specific like group of Transoceans where they'd get together every so often. They'd beforehand they would capture a bunch of people across the galaxy and set them loose on this planet, and then they would chase them, hunt the people, and at the end of the big hunt, they'd have a big barbecue with the people, you know, and they'd eat the people. So we needed to infiltrate this group to get one of those prisoners out. And like I said, I thought it was going to be all stealthy and whatnot. And Charlie goes, oh, why don't we just sell some of our people into the group? That way we have some inside people and da-da-da-da. And I was like, okay, so everything I prepared, nothing...
And on his perspective, it was great because I was one of the people getting sold.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
it was not only a Wookiee, which is their Trandoshan, like... And
Yeah.
Wookiees always going back and forth, but I was a Jedi as well, which they're like, oh, I need this fucking guy to chase down.
Totally. This was a big prize for them to chase you down.
Right. So it was an awesome, like, out of the box thinking sort of scenario.
It worked out great. I had to do, from that point on, I had to do everything on the fly. I mean, the only thing I was able to save are, like, the stats from some token bad guys that I used later on that they killed. But, I mean, I really didn't even need that because Mosby and Griss was sitting in the back of the vehicle, and they were like, okay, we want to shoot the two people in the front, the two Trandoshans in the front. And I was like, okay, well, you don't even need to roll for that. They're not fucking paying attention.
Right.
They're dead.
Yeah, we got
But now your fucking vehicle is spinning out of control.
we also got a tank from one of our ships. We threw a tank down. And we killed everyone and got all the survivors on the tank and got away.
Pretty much saved everybody. You're going in for one person, pretty much saved
we
everybody.
saved like fucking 100 people. We had all
It was
these
like
other
that scene
NPCs
from,
and stuff. It was
Like
great.
that scene from Captain America when Steve Rogers is like, he's like, fuck it, and he knows where the base is, where Bucky is, and he takes off and comes walking back with everybody,
Yeah, with
like
all
pretty
of
much
them,
everybody
yeah,
from the
yeah.
prison.
Pretty much.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome. Okay, I know what you're talking about now.
So I have a question for both of you, just to stem off like this question. I've only made one campaign, you know what I mean? So things might change a little bit if I made another one. But do you prepare differently for new players versus seasoned players, as far as like your first encounter, first session or whatever, and all that stuff? I would think you would, because I know I was thinking about that myself. What is your guys' take on that?
As far as like what you do with a new player or a seasoned player?
Right. If you're making a campaign, like, do you approach it differently if you have even a mix of the two, like a new player to the system?
You mean from the very beginning?
Yeah, the very beginning.
Well, I did a lot of talking. What do you think about that?
I mean, I can go first if you want, because obviously
Yeah,
I was
go
thinking
ahead.
about it. So I had, let me think, three or four, I think 4 new PCs to the system,
To the Star Wars
to
system.
the Star Wars system.
Okay.
They played D&D before, but they haven't played Star Wars, and it's been
Right.
Yeah,
a
it's
year
long
and a
time
half,
anyway.
2 years between playing. So obviously this is... So what I did, I just made the easiest fucking thing. The generic cantina, some thugs come in,
Yeah.
fight them off. Obviously you were part of that game. I don't think you
Yep.
were there. But that was just very simple. Make it a very simple thing. Have it funny role playing, and you know, the guys were like fucking really shitty guys, so it was very easy to kill them and stuff like that.
I think I see what you're saying now. Like you want to, there were new people to the system, so you want to make it easy for them to interact with the system.
Right.
Almost like a tutorial.
Yeah.
In a way.
Okay.
Right.
That was actually pretty smart. I didn't realize that was happening at the
Well,
time.
that was perfect then. That's what
Yeah.
I was going for. But
At the same time, like I was like, okay, cantina scene, thugs. I've done this before.
yeah, exactly.
Let's do this. Okay, I got this.
When I was coming up with like a way to get everyone in the same place that only 2 people actually knew each other, like before the game started, like in game, they only 2 people knew each other. So to get a party of 6 people together in a spot, like it was like, what else could you do? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously there's other ways to do it, but I was like, cantina is the easiest fucking way. For some reason, everyone's in this cantina, and just go from there.
It's funny you bring this up. Like, I'm not having the same problem with the new campaign that we're starting in January, but
But you took a totally different approach to how you made us make characters and stuff like that. So
yeah,
If I could play off of that, I could probably answer both the questions that I missed while I was going to the bathroom and what you were saying now pretty quick. Like what you were, like how you've got your next thing. Him and I were talking before. It's like it's pretty exciting. You know, you're keeping everything hush hush. You've got a very set plan. And as far as preparation goes for new or seasoned players, I could see it being a little different. Like you won't need necessarily a tutorial, but ultimately, if you don't understand the system, you have to start out the same way. Like if you're starting out your guys at level 5, you're not going to set a level 1 mission unless they're in need of refresher course or something like that. You know, just like here's a bunch of guys. But like when I would prepare something for D&D, I know this is a tactic. I didn't innovate this at all, but basically it's like if I have an idea for a story, the beginning and the end, they're fucking planned. They're set in stone. You can't do shit about it. It's fine. But the idea is to not railroad your characters, your PCs, to get to it. And to not let them go so far off the fucking rails that what you have...
there.
Exactly. Right. But you've created a world for them to live in. So what you do is you basically make it like if they roll a 15, you say shit like you've done it before. I'm pretty sure you've done it before. Where you're like, it takes you a little while. You dicked around on the computer for an hour, but you finally broke through. But if they roll a 30, you're like, not only did you do this, but you fucking uncovered a secret muffin recipe that Darth Vader had hidden. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, but it achieves the same end, and it doesn't matter. But it makes the character feel like they've accomplished something.
Right, they got something extra because they fucking
exactly.
Awesome
So the preparation portion, it doesn't matter. Like the whole time in our D&D campaign. They didn't know this because it was so far above their level, but they were escorting a dwarf who was actually a shape-shifting fucking other creature, but they would have never found out. And it's I'm not gonna say it was like some fucking like mastermind scheme, but like I hit it with a bunch of other shit that was surrounding it. So little did they know the entire time there was hints there and stuff, but they could have never affected the outcome to get to the point where there was basically 3 points to the story. And I didn't care how the fuck they got there, but at some point they were going to get there. Seasoned or otherwise, it doesn't matter because you're telling the story.
Right.
So like someone could come in like you've GM'd and PC'd in a bunch of games. I don't know why my phone's going off. I'm gonna move it because it's fucking it's right into the mic. And, I wasn't expecting it to. Yeah. But I've only. I DM'd that one time, and that was the learning experience, and then having PC'd for a while. I think anything that I do well in regards to any of that is just for my appreciation or enjoyment of that imagination portion of things. Same with you. That's why I think we do it. But it doesn't matter. Like you could get someone who's been playing for 30 years, but he's playing in your story. You can get someone who's just starting out, but they're playing in your story. So you just got to kind of, the goal is not to kill somebody. So it's like, I really love dragons. A fucking level 1 is not going to fight an elder dragon, unless
baby dragon.
It's definitely not going to be a fight. It's just going to be that dragon killing
it's
you.
A meal.
It's not a fight. It's a meal. I like that part where you say the thing about the dwarf being a shapeshifter. So you're planting a seed. I love that shit. I will definitely put stuff in the story early on and cultivate that little seed and let it grow and let it grow. Like, for example, Kul Darheen. Do you remember when I first showed you the figure that I painted for Kul Darheen? Yeah. That was like 3 years before you actually killed him.
Yeah. Yeah, it was when I knew I wanted to kill him.
Definitely. The as far as like what's going on for the new campaign that we're doing,
Yeah, if you want to elaborate on that, maybe one of our viewers want to steal your idea.
yeah, that's
Or,
great.
you know,
So here's the thing, like I've been GMing, DMing consistently for about 5 years now, and it's been a big learning experience. This is the longest running. Not only is it the longest running game I've been in, but the whole time I've been the GM. All right, so and you guys and Mark and Charlie have been there through 90% of it, 90% of it. I feel like this is the best group I've played in, period. Like, these are the best players I've played with, and it's the best, like, mix of people. It's a good mix of people, right? So I know you guys because I've basically been doing these psychological tests on you for the past 5 years. You know, like I do like fucked up shit where I present like 2 different options for you to take, and then I take note of which one you did. Are you gonna go save the orphans, or are you gonna go hunt the bad guys through the jungle? All right. So some people are gonna save the orphans automatically. Some people are gonna hunt the bad guys. Eventually, you find out that the bad guys had the orphans kidnapped. So you're gonna end up in the same place anyway. But when I did shit like that to you guys, I'm fucking testing you. I'm like, oh, where are they gonna go with this? So like, because of things like that, this time around, I feel like I know you guys well enough to where, like, I can throw some fucking shit at you that you don't do in a GM game, or like in a game like this. Usually, like, when you start out, it's like, hey, everybody go around the table and tell us everybody a little bit about yourself and your character and yada yada.
Right.
This time, I specifically told you, don't tell anybody shit. Keep all your whatever to yourself until the game starts playing. And basically, I have like a secret agenda, what's going to happen in this game. And you guys are in an environment where you wouldn't be friendly and open to the other people around you, and that has to like carry over. So I wanted to give you guys a chance to explore how bad you like you. What I wanted to do was, I'm not creating a good guy thing. I'm not creating a bad guy thing. You can be anything you want. You want to be a Jedi. You want to be a Sith. You want to be a fucking garbage man. You can do whatever you
You're
want.
supposed to know what I was going to be.
Huh?
We're both garbage men? Awesome.
Yes.
Woo! Waste
All
management.
right.
So, it's basically because you guys have all been playing together for so long and you know each other so well, I feel like I can do that with you guys. You know, like
It's nice to have a group that clicks too.
Yeah.
It's good.
Definitely have
so much better.
And consistent, like, as far as, like, showing up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
and a group that is invested. Like, we were talking about this earlier. The time that you and Charlie plotted for a year to kill one of my NPCs.
Yeah.
Like, from the GM standpoint, the fact that you were so invested that you planned for a year to kill somebody that I had been throwing at you, I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
My favorite thing about that was I remember one time I pulled Charlie aside and I said to him, I said, I want to work out a deal with you. I said, I played it from the complete Jedi perspective. I was like, this guy is going to the dark side. I feel like he cannot be redeemed. We've dealt with him many, many times. Next time we confront him, I have some questions for him. But if he doesn't answer them properly, the way I need him to answer them, I need him eliminated. And I don't necessarily know if I'm the one that wants to do it or not, but I know you will. And I will pay you half of what I make every mission from now till the point in time when we meet him to do it. And he said, okay. So we had done it a couple of times where, we got paid credits for a mission or whatever, and I gave him half. But there was like the second or third time you were like, I was like, oh, Charlie, so, we made like, let's say $3,000. I was like, I got 1,500, you got 1,500 of mine. He's like, okay. And he rewrote it down. And you were like, what's that for? Both of us just kind of looked at you like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But that was the thing, like, some GMs running the game would be like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I have to know everything. From my perspective, it was like, all right, cool. It'll be a surprise for me, too.
You kind of bring up a good point, though. I don't know if you mentioned anything about, or have anything written about this, but metagaming from like a PC perspective, it's difficult enough to deal with, but as a DM, it's damn near fucking impossible. Like you kind of don't want to know what the characters are planning.
Well, how many times in both of our games, not so much yours, because I don't think we were totally comfortable with
everyone was
going
still
outside the box.
Yeah.
But how many times have people left your game, go talk by themselves, or left my game, you guys go talk in the other room or whatever? So DM
every time.
or the GM or whatever has no idea what the fuck you're even talking about.
Right.
And even if it's being talked in front of you, you're not supposed to like listen or whatever. However, whatever happens in front of you, you're gonna adjust what you're doing.
Yeah, you like, almost can't help it.
You can't You can't help
if you,
it. So
if you hear two players having a secret conversation that you're not involved in, it is almost impossible not to react.
Like, oh, I'm gonna do this
like you don't know it.
Because think about it, if you already set something up, you can just kind of let it go and be whatever. That's probably the most even road you can go with knowing the information. Or you react to it and like counter it or something, or you purposely not know it, which at that point you're letting them run your game. And that's not good either way for the story because you're letting the characters change it. Yeah, so you're better off just not knowing. And then when it happens, though, you make a judgment call. Like, we had to pull you aside and said, hey, we're going to shoot him in the face. And you were like, wait, what? What? And then we're like, remember how we've been paying this card? You're like, son of a bitch, holy shit. And you're like, yeah, fuck it, do it. Okay, fine. Shoot him in the head, and that's good with me.
You know what, dude? The reason why I was fine with that is because there's a trust there. All right? Like you trust me to hopefully be entertaining for you, and I trust you to play the game without being too crazy or whatever, you know.
Ruin it for everyone else. Yeah.
The one of the things I like about you is in the last game that we played.
It was like in real life in the game. You know,
in the last game, you had said something to me like, "Hey, from a DM perspective, I don't know if you might want to mention this."
Oh, what the hell was that?
So it was basically like your
feelings,
your
about
character's
that
feelings,
area, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, I've been in situations where people have said pretty much that same sort of thing, but they were dicks about it, and it was just basically like, well, no, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
But because of the way you approached it, and because of there's a trust between all of us, and when you pulled me aside, there was no ego there on your part, and which made it easy for me not to have an ego. And when you said it to me, I was just like, okay, that's yeah, of course I would do that.
It was one of those things though where like I felt playing my character that where I was going to produce an extreme emotional response.
Right.
And it would have been painfully obvious to other characters had they thought to look for it. But why the fuck would they? I mean, really, we're not Jedi. We're not force sensitive characters.
Right.
So I felt like if I mentioned it to you, like, hey, my character is under extreme duress right now.
Right.
If you feel compelled to tell anybody about it, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh no one feels anything from me. You know
that
what
was
I mean?
super helpful to me because if I did initiate something afterwards, but also in the interim, if somebody had said, hey, I do a force field. Well, I actually think you did that. You reached out with the force to get a perspective on him at some point, and I actually sent you a text message. I think something like that happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was so many text messages going back and forth. I actually sent you some of his text messages.
Yeah. You were supposed to get that. But
Don't look at that. But I just thought that was super helpful, and I remember thinking later at the game, later on, I was like, I've seen that exact same situation go horribly wrong because of whoever was initiating it or whatever. But because of the way you did it, it was super helpful. I was like, yeah, that's something I would need to know. And if it comes up, yeah, that'd be, as soon as you said it and explained it to me, I was just like, yeah, of course I need to know that. Yeah, thanks. Good. All right, awesome.
I think even not the rules lawyering sort of level, but I know in my game and when I'm in your game, we'll say, oh, this is how it is by book, but do it how you want.
Right.
You know, like if there's some like, oh, I'm not sure how that works or something, because no one knows every fucking rule in the book or whatever.
No.
And like usually we're pretty good about not getting mad at the other person or something like that. When, oh, this is how you're supposed to do this, but it's your fucking game, figure it out, sort of thing.
I think I
So we
might
do a lot of
actually
that,
start
too.
designating a rules lawyer, like giving someone a book, because I do it at your game, not a dickhead rules lawyer, but I mean like I at your game, like I try to be helpful, because I know like a lot of the players are new and I don't know all the rules, so I keep a handbook with me, and when an issue comes up, I go, it's blah 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 blah.
Right.
You know, and you do that for me sometimes. Actually, that's a super helpful thing when you do that. But I mean, like, and it goes again. Like, there's that trust. Like, when you fucking pull the rule out of the book, I know you're not being a dick. You're trying to help me,
Right.
and it's super helpful. And I think it goes with that trust that we all have, because we've been playing for almost fucking 5 years together.
And I think to an extent that's fine. And I don't think we do it too much at all.
No.
But as long as, you know, new DM, GM sort of thing, like, if you're watching this, like, don't do that too much, because that shit waters down and totally kills the game.
I was going to say,
the
I
vibe.
might have a counterpoint. I think I don't necessarily disagree with both of you on it, but from a different perspective, just the word rules alone, to me, is kind of contradictory to an open world setup.
Yep.
To me, having played video games, having played D20 games and all that other stuff like that, if you understand the system, there is almost no fucking point to rules. Like, who's to
Right.
say you can't make up your own game completely from scratch based on a character sheet that you've made up? It's all completely there. So the only things that I think need understanding are things like, for instance, if we're talking about Star Wars, force points, destiny points, things like that
Or
don't
you're gonna
exist
have,
otherwise.
add, like, to your attack or damage or something like that. That's pretty fucking
That stuff's
self-explanatory.
kind of is important, like to understand weaponry and stuff. But that also is not necessarily rules stuff, because you do that from the get go. That's part
Right.
of your creation. Like, no one should need to consult a rule book on strength or a
No.
check. You know what I mean? Like, it fucking is what it is. And that's why I'm a huge favor of the rule of, like, when in doubt, +2 -2. If you feel
Yeah.
like someone is doing something that should have a positive outcome, or like is in a position to achieve a positive outcome, add 2 to their roll. If they're in a shitty position, fucking subtract 2. Don't waste any time opening a book, because, and this is one thing I'll say, when I was doing the D&D stuff, I had a subscription to the D&D Insider. And the fucking customer service there was phenomenal.
Yeah, I
I
was telling
called
him
them
about
that. Yeah, you were
like
just
3 or
telling.
4 times, and I swear to God, they were like the fucking best every time. And I'm talking from rules to even a financial problem I ended up having from my subscription. They handled it all beautifully. And 2 times I called regarding rules, and quote unquote rules. And I remember one of them. One of our characters was doing an ability called polymorph, and it allowed him to shapeshift basically into another creature, but he was knocked unconscious. And the rules in the books, it says, it doesn't, or either says or it doesn't say anything about losing that form when you're rendered unconscious. I said in the game though that you couldn't do it, and it didn't become like a snippy kind of issue of like oh well, the fucking rules and blah 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 blah. But it kind of became a thing of like, it was important enough to the character to be like, I really want to stay in this type of role, and I was like, no, you know. So it was like, I'm gonna.
So they
ask
lost
though.
consciousness, and
I said they turned back, but the
Okay.
rule book said like, no, you don't. So when I called, I had asked, I was like, I have a question about polymorph, and the lady I spoke with, she was like, well, first, and this was the second time I got this response about a different question from a different person. They said, first off, it's your game.
So it's a stock
Whatever
answer.
you say,
Yeah.
fucking goes. Period.
Right.
They're
Right.
like, but the rule book says they don't lose it. And the lady I spoke with in this regard, she said, but that makes perfect sense. If you have to maintain concentration for a spell,
Yep.
and you're unconscious, how are you maintaining that concentration? She's like, but the rule book says nothing to that effect, but in your game, like, that made perfect sense. So whatever you want to do, go with it.
Right.
And that's when it kind of dawned on me at that point. That was the second time I called them. But they said, it dawned on me,
The rules are just a guideline.
they're just a
Right.
guideline.
Yeah.
And even that, they're just barely that. They're just kind of there to, like,
if you needed it,
So-
like it's there. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So to bring it back
Oh.
around, it's nice to have someone with a book to spout a rule if you need it. But I don't disagree with you.
No.
Like, it's better just to
Right.
go, I'm just going to make a ruling. You don't fucking, you change back because you lost consciousness.
Yeah.
I know. I said it to you, like, that campaign. Well, you were first. You know, it was everyone's first time playing D&D. Really.
Yeah.
I know you said you played with your friends like earlier, but
That barely counted.
yeah, I think we did that too much, and that was one thing that I didn't
Took
want
a
to do
lot
in
of
my
time.
campaign. Like, go into like, oh well, I have to look it up on my phone. Okay, let's look it up online. Let's get to open the books, whatever. Because that, like I said, it took too much. It took your total mind frame out. You totally lost the sense of.
You're not in the world
consciousness.
anymore.
Exactly. You're just like, okay.
Now I'm
And
thinking
then-
about rules.
going into your
But
game.
that's when all of a sudden, you know, the phones come out. People get up to go piss. They go
Yeah.
get something to eat,
Takes
and
a
then it's
half hour
even
to get
longer
it
and longer.
going.
Exactly. Then there's 14 different breaks during the session, and you're really only playing for like an hour instead of the however long.
When
time
I
you're
first
there.
started DMing, I didn't know the rule. I honestly, I didn't know the rules as well as like I think a DM should. So a lot of what I was doing, I was just winging it. You know, but I mean, kind of had to do that.
Well, the thing is with PCs, if they're thinking outside the box, that specific thing most likely will not be in the fucking book.
Mm-hmm.
So like you got to think on. That's what you have to be quick with. Be like, okay, you know, the normal thing, roll. If they get a decent roll,
the rules,
they can do it.
The rules apply basically to attach a number or an ability, like a score, basically, to shit that we do every day.
Yeah.
You know, like walking up fucking stairs takes a dice check. But it doesn't require something in the rule book. So the rules only exist to apply a mathematical equation, basically, to
If
the
you
shit
need
that
it.
you do for any point in time.
Right.
Well, I like Saga Edition. They actually have a scale which I never use, but which I should use, like easy, difficult,
Yeah,
very
and
hard,
D&D's got that
impossible.
too.
Oh, I
whatever.
kind of have
Difficulty
like a
class or
basic
whatever.
idea of that in
Yeah,
my head all the time.
I mean, I think like 20 is like more than average, but anything lower than that, it's like, oh, you might be able to do it depending what you roll, but it's
and it
just,
also depends like once the players start getting so high up in level,
right,
like a 20 isn't as hard for them. So
right, especially if they
Yeah,
get
you
skill
adjust
focus or
based on
something.
Yeah.
whoever it is.
So
of
and
course.
to be honest with you, I would say anywhere from if there were 20 issues that came up that needed to be rolled for that were on the fly, 10 to 15 of them I just went, depending upon what you rolled, I just fucking made something up in my head from that like scale that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know
and
what I
a
mean?
lot of people, including in the book, I forgot the exact wording, but it's like 3 successes before 5 failures or whatever the case may be. If it's like what you
Skills
said,
challenges,
yeah, if it's like a big, 10 rolls in a row or something like that, so that's a good stage to go with or whatever.
Like when people are doing those unorthodox rolls, that is the perfect time not to check a fucking book.
Right.
Just
absolutely.
Just let them be creative as possible and just go
Yeah.
with it.
and
Like-
and how well they're doing with describing it will determine how well like you were saying earlier, if I'm going to give them a plus or minus on that roll or whatever, something like that.
Like when Keith's character, Pippi, when he when shit was hitting the fan at the auction, and he fucking blocked the exit and was like, "I'm making people pay to get out." Like that shit was fucking genius. If I looked in the book, that's not in the book. Like I gave him pluses just because it was awesome, and like he made what 10,000 credits from it.
Did he
Because-
make 10 grand?
Yeah, because there's 100 people in the thing. I said I don't know exactly. What
I know
said,
for a
but-
fact, I can see into the future. He's going to take that money, he's going to roll it over, he's going to like buy some drugs, sell the drugs, make more money, invest in some fucking real estate,
Right.
and then retire and be like, all right, I'm super rich. I don't need to play this fucking
I
game
gotta roll-
anymore.
I gotta roll a new character
But that was
in the game of life. This
That's
character
what I
wins.
love. We'll get into that conversation later, but that's what I love PC's doing. Just thinking totally fucking outside the box. Not like he could have just ran in there and started shooting, helping his friends. But instead he's like, I'm gonna stop at this fucking entrance and fucking make people pay to get out.
Keith, I noticed too, like, he, him, Kaya, they didn't know the rules that well at first. Keith was a little shaky, but like I've noticed as the games went on, he would keep all the little books on his. He'd keep the books on his phone and whatnot. As the game went on, he got really proficient,
Right.
really fast, and now like he's calling me out on shit. Like, oh, that's not how the rule goes. You didn't do that when you were playing. I was like, all right, you got me, you fucking asshole. But yeah, I feel like he's really come a long way as far as like the rules. He's on point with that.
Yeah, he always had the character, the depth and like being like outside the normal character creation. Like he already had that as soon as he told me what he was making. Like as far as the character goes, it was like he was like that in friggin' D&D too. Like he was.
Both of them are fantastic fucking role players.
Yeah.
And then they really get into their characters, and they do it so well that just makes it fun, immensely fun.
It makes
Definitely.
your job easier, and not only that, it makes you want to continue to GM when you have players like that, because that's why you do it. To you give them a little framework of a game, and then they come in and have fun with it too.
The more input they give, yeah, it definitely makes it easier. Especially when they're like, they're going off on what they think the bad guy is. Like when the players are going off on what they think the bad guy is, and they speculate on how bad things are, and I'll be sitting there going, "That's totally worse than what I planned." Yeah, that's totally right. You guys are totally right. It's just like that.
Right.
Spot on.
When they were playing in our session, I don't know if you remember this encounter specifically. You might not have been there for it, because I don't remember at what point this was, because there was a couple of times where a few people didn't show up for a game, and I just kept the story going. But I was running, just to try to get used to it, I was running a D&D 4th edition written campaign. But it was like my plot was underlying all of their story, like the D&D story. And they kept losing on the major bosses. Like at this point, it was like an Iron Circle, Winter King, and...
You used to kill people like every session, no? Almost.
Pretty
Bear's
much.
character died.
Oh, God.
He had like 7 characters throughout the
he
campaign.
had more PC.
Who?
He should get a trophy.
Bear?
Yeah, really?
Yeah, Nez?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just...
He's had so many characters.
It's like almost every session, like the joke was like, okay, I hope you rolled 2, like so you have that one for next month.
It's so fucking funny.
And it just was like bad luck and like his role playing or whatever the case may be. It was all different reasons. It wasn't one thing. It was
See, I'm
funny.
surprised that he was the one that got killed, because when we started playing your game, when I started playing as a player in your game, I thought he was the most level-headed. So my character was like,
It wasn't necessarily like aggression
Yeah,
or
he's
him doing
level-headed, but it doesn't equate to combat.
oh.
Like, he's still level-headed while he's being punched in the face repeatedly. His character's getting beheaded, and he's like, I'm cool with all of it.
Yeah,
so funny.
I ended up beheading his character as my character.
His character was a savage.
Jesus Christ.
It was
Keith and Kaya's characters, though, the Iron Circle storyline, it was so fucking funny. They got captured by him. It was the first time I got to play a character with an intellect equal to or better than their own, with like a military mind. So I played him balls to the wall, like he was a PC and I was invested in his survival. And the way they played, it was a full fucking battle that they just lost outright, because they had no cohesion whatsoever as a unit. And meanwhile, they're running against this military tactician, and they got totally fucking slaughtered by him. But instead of being actually killed, they were imprisoned and pretty much brought into the fold. They worked for the Iron Circle at that point in time. So I think your character then afterwards with
Bear.
possibly Bear, they were like, hey, by the way, we now work for the Iron Circle. And they're like, what the fuck? But the best part was...
And that was the point when I think me and Bear were thinking about leaving the campaign.
Yeah, you were going to leave and go on your own.
So that's around the time when I finally realized I could do whatever
Yeah, you're on your second character. He was on like his 17th.
Yep.
But the best part was, like, I pulled everybody aside as this, I don't know if he was a general or not, but he was certainly the leader of that crew. And I talked to every one of them individually and said, this was the plan. I need you to do this. So they all had a mission, and Keith commits to this character, and his job was to assassinate remaining leadership within this like rebellion that was going on. And Kaya's character, I forgot what I tasked her with. She was playing a dark elf bard at the time, and it was a he, and he was supposed to do something almost completely opposite of what they were doing. I was testing everybody's
That's the weird thing about being a DM. Like it's all about
just see
testing
what they're gonna
people will do.
And the best
I
part
want to touch
is
on this story too.
they go into this fucking house. It's just one house, but there's like 4 leaders. And I let it all happen. I mean, it's ludicrous to think of now, but it was just so fucking funny. Kaya's character leads everyone outside, and Keith's character is like, I'm just going to stay back a little bit and talk to somebody. And they're like, okay. They leave him alone, which, I mean, anybody who knows him should just know better. Like, something is up. And he goes into the room and starts, like, shanking a guy in his bed. He's shutting the door, and then he fails, like, a stealth check. So I've got someone coming from the bed, like, from the living room up to him. He's shoving a body under a bed. He's locked the door. Kaya's trying to get in. He's killed everyone in the house now by himself, and now he is failing more checks to set the house on fire from the inside. And everyone's just going, what's going on? So Kaya finally manages to get in the house and is like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, nothing. She's like, what is going on right now? Because she's like the leader de facto in this whole scenario. And is like, everyone's just waiting on her, like, what's happening? Why is he taking so long? She's like, I'm getting to it. And she's like, what's happening? He's like, nothing's happening. I'm just doing what I'm told. She's like, I'm doing what I'm told. What's going on? And eventually, after like 4 fucking fails, he sets the house on fire, and they take off running. And I don't even remember what happened after that. I think I was laughing so fucking hard afterwards. It was just the 2 of them being characters, and it fucking makes the story so much fun.
Speaking of like, seeing what they'll do, that character you killed that you and Charlie planned for a year to assassinate. My whole in that game that you killed him, my motivation was I'm going to take this character, this NPC, that has been fucking with you for a couple of years now, and I am going to put him in a situation where he is the victim. You know, you totally have the upper hand. He can't do anything. He's the victim. He's been tortured. He's been beaten. He's being held captive. He can't get away. I wanted to see what your characters would do, right? But I wanted to see what all the characters would do. But
and mind you, not to cut you off, this was my first actual mission.
Oh, that's right.
With the
off-world, and I bullshit.
Off of Kashyyyk.
Oh, off of Kashyyyk.
Yeah.
Oh, so you've been playing for a few games though.
Just that Kashyyyk portion was.
But this is so we're off of that whole Kashyyyk story arc.
He knew nothing of that character.
No.
He knew nothing of Tevin and the Sith artifact that he had, and the reason
Tevin Raoul, the
exactly.
Jedi that had been possessed by the by the sword.
And I said to him, I was like, "Hey, do me a favor. This guy is really like." To my credit on it, I did vital transfer and brought him back to life.
Yeah, you healed
him
before you killed him.
Yeah, and I helped him.
What a dick move!
And then him and the other Wookiee strapped him back up for me because I was like, he's dangerous and I need to talk to him. Strap him back up. He's like, okay.
Me not knowing any better, being new to the campaign,
and then he leaves.
Like, okay, I'll leave.
He leaves, and Mosby comes on the ship with me because Mark and him, they were off like interrogated by the exchange or some shit. Yeah, and I forgot why.
So the best part of that was I'm going to take this NPC, I'm going to put him in a position where he's the victim. I want to see what you guys will do. Like, holy shit, I didn't see that coming. They're just going to kill him. They're going to fucking kill him.
And getting back to the do whatever you want sort of thing, this was my 3rd or 4th session maybe. And I was literally like, okay, maybe I should go back to Kashyyyk and re-roll a fucking character.
You didn't want to ruffle any feathers at the time either, because you're just getting into the game.
What the fuck? Like, I'm a Jedi, I'm supposed to be, joining this group.
You had a really tough time.
So I almost fucking literally just dropped that character and was just like, okay, let me re-roll something else as a Jedi.
I don't know,
Because the backstory, I knew him too, right? From the Jedi Council or something
his master was your master.
I actually knew.
Your master was the Ithorian who ran.
Tevin's master as well, right?
I
thought it was.
Not necessarily.
But I knew him from because me and him were on the same group or whatever of Jedis that were finding Sith artifacts for.
Right.
So I knew him before this as well.
So
I had a relationship.
Here's the thing, the Ithorian he was specifically your master, but when it came to those other NPCs, because of that Ithorian's position, those were Jedi that worked for him.
Right.
He wasn't necessarily their master, but at the same time, he was in charge of Jedi Knights who were in charge of those other NPCs. Or some of those NPCs were Padawans to Jedi Knights who worked for that Ithorian.
Right.
Who was actually, the only one he was actually the master of was you.
Right.
So, but it definitely felt like he was in charge of all those other Jedi because he was.
Yeah.
But I had a prior relationship with him. Either
You
way.
had a relationship
So that's
with him.
why that almost pushed me over the edge. Like,
Right.
I had this, we were Jedi, we were cool, and the Jedi Council sort of thing, and then all of a sudden, they fucking kill him, and I'm like, what the fuck did I get myself into, sort of thing, and wanted to leave almost.
You were like, the Ithorian Master, what was his
Errol.
name? Errol, yeah,
Errol.
Master Errol. You were like the prodigal son kind of thing. Like, you left your master to go fight with Revan.
Right.
And he was pissed off about that, but at the same time, when he saw you, he was like, hey,
How you doing? Want some candy?
I made cookies.
Been thinking about you. So one thing is, getting back to the original question about preparing for a campaign. One thing I got from a different from a different podcast. Don't watch any other ones. Was to ask your players, which I've asked you guys, what you love, what you hate, and why you're here. Obviously that could be.
I gotta say, Jacob had the best response. What do you love? What do you hate? And why are you here? And his response was, you bitches.
But when
Just if we're gonna do like a shout out to him, in my campaign he was a dwarf, and he's one of the best little segments. I think everybody that was in there at that point in time laughs whenever it's mentioned. Was they were in a bar. Actually, it's funny because your cantina setting is kind of reminiscent of that. There was a tavern or some shit, and a bunch of thugs walk in, and they said something like "lay down your arms" or whatever, like put your weapons down, basically. But they said specifically arms, and Jake turns over with his dwarf character and goes, "But if I have no arms, how can I drink?" or something like that. And then my response was roll initiative, and then that was it. It just went from there, and everyone just looks at him like, "What the fuck?"
Because this was one of many times they got us into a fight that we maybe could avoid.
But it was so good.
But it was funny,
so
like
good.
role
It doesn't
play
matter.
was.
It was fucking great.
Yeah, it was great.
So great.
And
he
what were you
also
just
said-
saying before I went off the rails on
The
your...
love, hate, and
Oh, yeah,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But what I was getting at is, some people don't want to type up or write out
That's true.
elaborate backstory.
Yeah.
So just by having those couple things, like I love, say, my sister or something, I hate fucking the Sith.
This is an incest
Yeah,
storyline that he's
this
talking
is
about.
where
Well,
we're
it's
going.
Star Wars, so yeah.
Empire again. You can build off of that, and you can make 35 different sessions on what they hate, what they love, why they're there, sort of thing. So I thought that was an easier way to get some people to open up, which some people opened up more, some people gave me bullshit answers, like you said. So it did help, but
I don't think I ever even gave you answers on that.
I think you just said drugs, which is pretty much your whole character thing.
True. Yeah.
But anyway,
You know what
but
was...
that's a different way to sort of
From
spin
my
it.
perspective, when he put that up, I was like, I'm glad I'm not DMing him.
Yeah, it's
I'm super psyched about playing alongside him, but holy shit.
he did
I
not
would punch him if he said that to me.
He did not participate much in the backstory.
Yeah.
And my response was like, well, I guess you don't want this campaign to be about you whatsoever. You can just be there, so that's fine. But I was trying to get everyone to sort of say what they wanted to be and what their backstory was, so I could make the campaign about each
He was
character.
completely uncooperative.
Yeah,
but
it was
so fucking funny.
It was like this is funny. If someone else said this, like if he said that in your game or his game, I'd be laughing. But as the GM, I'm like, what the fuck? Come on,
Throw me a fucking bone!
But yeah, it was entertaining.
Yeah, that was fucking hilarious. I had a big giggle fit when I fucking read that one.
I mean, we touched. You guys have anything else on the campaign sort of thing?
No, I think I covered everything.
Was it just preparation wise? Was pretty much the last
Yeah,
question.
pretty much.
I mean, that's pretty much all I had. Was like when you're doing a game, you have your beginning point, and you have your end game. Almost everything in between is up to the characters.
Yeah.
You basically just they're a means to an end, and you let them go to pretty much to that point.
You gotta have a basic kind of story arc, and then like you're saying, you gotta have a basic story arc that's gonna bring you to the beginning of the end, and you gotta get inside your characters' heads. You gotta make them want to fucking participate.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That was I lost. I'm glad you said that because I had a middle point that I forgot while I was talking, and then you just reminded me of it. You have a beginning and you have an ending, and in the middle, your only job is to remember what the fuck they do. Remember what every PC does and what decisions they made, and then have it affect them to get to your end. You basically form the story all around them up to the point where you've created that ending.
And that's what you have to do as far as rules as well too. If you make a rule on the fly,
exactly,
or rule something on the fly without looking at the book, you have to try to be consistent.
Absolutely.
But one thing I thought I needed, which people might say they need or don't need, was a constant in the story, and that's what the Rodian Odor was for you guys in the Blood Wolves. Was you always had them, at least for the first part of the story, the campaign, that he was the one, and his group was the one who was giving you missions and things to do, and your goal was to free Tatooine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, at least from my perspective, that's what I needed to keep it going.
That's your tutorial, though. You basically used him as, like, a teacher. He kind of comes in and shows you everything, and then, like at a certain point in time, you could have just been like, all right, you guys are out, and fucking boom, sniper bolt right through O'Derrick's head. He's dead on the ground in front of you, and now it's like, now what do you want to do? Training wheels are off.
That's my next game. What the fuck?
Oh, shit.
Those kind of characters come in a lot. Like, and what you just said exactly happened in one of the last 4 games that I ran, when I killed off who was in charge of the Mandalorians. Like that guy had been given Mark missions and directions and stuff like that for like over a year, and then it finally came to the point where that guy got killed and Mark took over for him. You know, exactly. That's exactly what you just described. Like you have this one character who's kind of making
people in the campaign.
Yeah, give the group a reason to be together, because that can be tough. Depending on how open you want to have a game.
Yeah, because it's not like, at least in my campaign, it's not like all you guys were Jedis or all you were in the rebellion for a different era or whatever. So it was tough to try to make. Plus, I made, what was it, 20,000 credits was for your first mission or something ridiculously high for level
we made
1.
a lot of money.
So I was like, this would get them to agree to this, even if their goals and moral compass or whatever is not the same.
Right.
They're all in bad shape in one way or the other. They might need some money. So I thought that would be a good way to open up the first campaign and at least get you guys rolling.
You know what? Just to go back to like the difference you do with new players as opposed to seasoned players. Here's one thing that I just thought of, and you reminded me. With newer players, I'm gonna make it a little easier for them to achieve things,
right?
And then make it harder later on. But seasoned players, like you guys, you're not getting a bunch of cool shit to begin. Like you all know most of the rules now. So now it's not my job to show you, look, you can have one of these and one of these, one of these. You know all the things you can get.
Right.
Now it's going to be your job to seek those out and to get them yourselves. And I almost made that mistake with Charlie's new character, because Charlie's new character
Go on.
Has some.
Go on. What's his name? What race? Where is he from?
Well,
class,
without revealing,
basically,
here's something you'll know about Charlie's character just by looking at him. He'll have a prosthetic eye and a prosthetic limb. Now, my initial thing was, dude, you know what I can do with your prosthetic eye? I can give you this and this and this and this. And I went, oh, never mind. And then he went, no. I just want to start out with the basic stuff. And he brought me back down to reality. And I was like, no, he's right.
Nice.
He needs
Especially
to
being
fucking
level 1 too. Like you think.
Yeah, he's not going to have all that cool
if
shit.
If he gets credits throughout the campaign, he'd be like, okay, well, I want to upgrade
my eye.
If it's his leg or, well, I know it's his eye, but say his leg or whatever else is off.
You know, that
I
was
want to upgrade that or whatever.
In your game, that's what I said when we were building my character. I was like, I don't want to come up with a story of like, you know, because you're playing the hero, you want to be like this fantastic character or whatever, but you're a fucking level 1. And
You're not yet.
Yeah, you're nothing. You're nothing. So like, when you come into it, you can be somewhat spectacular, but you just want to be a little bit above ordinary. So
yeah, we were thinking like the whole like you're part of the military. You went to jail.
I was gonna be
You're
military
an expert sniper and all this shit.
Yeah,
but you're
we're
level
going
1.
we're going for that sniper build. But yeah, but then what happens when you're in the field and you roll a d20 and you critically fail every fucking shot? Like,
Right.
oh, this was the big military sniper we heard all this shit about.
Yeah, if it doesn't
and
miss.
you can't fucking hit a thing.
You don't start out as that awesome sniper. You gotta build
Right.
up to it. Yeah.
Like I usually show, like when we were telling Katie about her character build in your game, starting at level 3, it was when I came in. I knew I wanted to be a Jedi with lightsaber ability, like really fucking stupid lightsaber skills. I didn't care as much about the Force, but the way you start out as a Jedi, they really push that Force stuff. So it took a few levels before I could build him the way I wanted him to be. But now it's like he's fucking awesome with the lightsaber. He's fantastic with it.
Yeah.
It's so, but it was you know, it was a long game. You had to kind of play it out and get to that point. But it's so gratifying when you do. So if you come up with a level 1 story, that's just that's another thing. But maybe when you're starting out with new players, you got to rein them the fuck in as opposed to seasoned players. Like we can sit here and roll our characters up and not know what the fuck story you're telling and be completely happy with it. Whereas a new player is going to come in and be like, oh, I was born in the fucking Shire in the year 1702, and I had to bring a ring to the fucking Mordor or whatever the fuck they did.
Well, that's the thing. Like for this new campaign that we're doing, I have a basic idea of what's going to happen. Actually, that's a lie. I have way more than a basic idea of what's going to happen. But at the same time, I've sat down with all of you, or at least not in person or on the phone. I've had in-depth conversations with everybody about where they're going to go with their character and what's going to happen with them. And so I know how it all connects. You guys have no idea yet.
Right.
But because I've invested that time and talked to you guys, or either it's in conversations or emails or text messages or whatever, I know a bunch of shit about all of your characters. But you guys don't know anything about each other. And that's how I want to start it. So you guys literally don't have no idea how you're going to get started or whatever. And you have all the opportunity in the world to build your character however way you want. Like, there's not going to be any... I don't think there's going to be any moral compass issues in this campaign. Like that.
So you're playing off experiences from your last game.
Right.
Your last campaign.
Right. Yeah. I didn't want to put...
Are you saying I'm not playing a Jedi again?
Play whatever you want, buddy. I know what you're playing.
I think I know, if I remember.
Oh, you know.
But
You know.
I think one thing that's important, which we both did in our games, is obviously a time frame, and to pick from. Don't be like, oh, we're gonna just play a Star Wars game. I think it helps to have like a time frame, like a Rebellion era or Dark Wars or Dark Times or whatever. You know, that definitely helps.
Definitely love this Old Republic setting.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about all the other shit that's going on in the movies or breaking canon or whatever. Actually, I think we're way past breaking canon at this point.
Yeah, I definitely have. I mean, that's one thing you got to think of too is if you're gonna break canon, if you're going to just do whatever you want. Also, what books you're gonna allow the players to use, because there's 14 books or something like that.
I say all of them.
I mean, I that's what I did too, but I almost think if I did it again, I would say less, because me being me, all of a sudden, like, I'm helping him, I'm helping Bear, even Keith and Kaya to an extent, they do a lot of their own stuff, but like for his sniper build, I'm like, okay, he's a soldier. Let me look up all the soldier talents and the 5 different books of the soldier talents.
Yeah.
And now it's like, holy shit. Instead of just using the core book and then the time book or the Old Republic book, and that's it. You know what I mean? It would be so much easier just to do that.
I can't help but do that for the character that you let me have a lot of range with that character, which I totally appreciate. And I tried to be as respectful to you as possible when I was building that character, because it was your game. But at the same time, I had this like I want to go out of the books and kind of create my own class a little bit.
Right.
When I build a character, I have a tracking sheet. So like, I know what fucking I'm gonna pick for like up to like 14th level or whatever. I have a check mark off. Okay, I'm at level 4, but I know what's gonna happen up until then. I have it all planned out. Because I go through the books and I do exactly what you did. Oh, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this.
I do that too, building it, but trying to help 4 other PCs doing it is just like
It's tough.
you're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So I think it's a you know, you have to stay on the fence sort of thing. Either you go this way or that way, and be like, how open do you want to make these characters? And you got to put like a guideline. Like you don't want to be too constrictive, but you don't want to be too open either.
I still have sometimes there are players that I have to help like that, but there are other players that I don't at all.
Right.
So just
And I don't think everyone will take advantage of that either, like looking through the books themselves or anything like that.
no.
Because they think that's too much work. They just want to go there and play the game, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, if I did it again, I might be a little bit more constrictive. So after you all die, like next game, we should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Because my whole thing
I'll never
was
overdose.
my whole thing was like, let people be whoever they want, whatever they want. We'll figure it out because I wanted to make it fun, and I think it's.
If you think
been
about it,
decent
though,
so
with
far.
like what you guys know about Star Wars, or just that type of shit in general, and like I texted all of you guys before about the if whenever the hell I can get a game going again, just knowing about
didn't text
mythology
me
or
about that.
anything. No, yeah, it was to him.
It was just
we can talk more though. But if you understand the system, this is where I come in as kind of like the devil's advocate, I guess, on this, is because while you guys are talking books, I'm saying fuck books.
Well, that's
Because who
that's
gives
important.
a flying fuck about canon, and who gives a fuck about any of that stuff? You could literally sit there with the same character sheet, the same tracking sheet, the same D20 system, and say this is the year fucking 742 billion, and now Rhodians completely took over this entire half of the galaxy through
wish.
the drug trade that Scarrow created. And just
That's
say
what you
like,
love.
yeah, right, exactly. But the Jedi Order could be, roles could be reversed. You could completely pull your own story out of your ass, like a fan fiction, and revolve a D20 game around
Totally.
it. And you don't have to worry about books. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff from any sort of thing. You can make up a class. You could make up skills and abilities. Anything to that effect. Like I could look at all the D&D, like I've got the 4th edition books, almost every one, and I could look and be like, that's a stupid creature. Those don't exist. That's a stupid creature. That doesn't exist. I'd like to see this type of creature and fucking make it. Once you have the system down pat, you can just make whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know?
I did that with a Rathtar.
Yeah, that's right.
I went to there's in the Saga edition, in one of the books, there's between the core rule book and one of the other ones, I can't remember, I think might be the Unknown Regions, there's actually a creature building template.
Yeah.
So I went off of that a little bit. I picked some cool abilities that I thought a Rathtar would have. I actually made a character sheet for it, and then I made one of those tokens that you'd get out of the book.
Nice.
One of those bad guy tokens, and actually I gotta send you that shit so you can have it, so you don't have to fucking build a Rathtar from scratch in case you want to send that.
I think that's what I did with what the hell's her name?
Joey. Oh, Japheth.
Japheth's cat.
Oh yeah.
That Loth cat was not in any book or anything.
Right.
No, that's too new to be in the books.
Yeah.
I looked up obviously I looked up all the creatures. I took abilities that, well, it only really has one special ability, but I took ability that would make sense for a freaking cat to have.
Right.
And I created not too overpowered, it's just a cat, you know what I mean? But it's still, now that cat has flavor, now that cat can be used in combat or...
Should we ask Trandoshan what flavor that cat might have?
You know what? You're saying about knowing the rules and you can do whatever you want. I like this creature, I like that creature. Because I know the rules as decent as I do at this point, now I can, when the movie comes out and they create a new creature, I can go, oh,
I'll make that.
oh yeah, I can make that. Mm-hmm. Or I can, or from like another whether it be a D&D book or a newer system like the FFG, I can look at an FFG monster and be like, oh, okay, I see what they're going there. So if I translated that to Saga Edition, it would look like this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can figure out pretty much their defenses and stuff.
Yeah.
How you want to make it. Even as long as it's, going back to the books, as long as the challenge level makes sense for what you're trying to do, just fucking mix and match. It'll work. You know what I mean?
My big thing is, if you look at that book, someone wrote that. Someone pays their bills off the fact that they thought of it to write that.
Yeah.
So what is stopping anyone else from doing the same fucking thing? Like
Right.
we're not doing it to make money, but we're doing it to have fun. So why can't you do the same thing? You can understand why they do it, and we exploit it as a convenience to sit there and have a template and something to use. But to fall on it as a crutch, I think makes you kind of a weak DM at that point. You know, just sit there and be like, I can only tell pre-generated stories written by a guy who makes X amount of dollars a
Right.
year to do so.
The when you
That's a good way. Go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead.
Yeah,
I was like,
interrupt. Like, this is his fucking show or something.
I was like, he's struggling. I should just say something instead. But I mean, the Dawn of Defiance campaign thing, or the guide, which is like a whole campaign from level 1 to whatever. It's a good way to
Dawn of Defiance.
Dawn of Defiance.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Is a good way to like introduce players to the system.
Yep.
And there is a whole storyline to go through from start to finish. I'm not sure the whole level scheme. I haven't looked too much into it, but
Don't look at it.
What?
Don't look at it.
Okay, I'll look at it all.
Don't look at it for a couple of months.
I guess
No
we're
reason.
using that.
Uh-oh.
No reason.
Uh-oh.
Wink, wink. But stuff like that, I think, is okay to go by if you're new at GMing because it has everything in there for you. But an experienced one, I don't think needs that.
It all depends on what you're trying to do, too.
Right.
I mean, sometimes it's fun. Like, everybody is always, a lot of guys that we play with, they don't have time to sit down and do that kind
Right.
of stuff, or even to invest into a character. So they want that pre-constructed story. It's like getting together and playing a board game. Like, it's already there and function, but you get to play it differently. It serves a purpose.
Plus, you could feel like overwhelmed with making your own campaign. Like, I'm just going to use this one.
Since you brought it up, Dawn of Defiance, full disclosure, I'm actually using some stuff from that campaign, but at the same time, if you go, I'm just kidding about not going to read it. If you go and read it, you'll be like, oh, I remember this from it. But if you expect the outcomes to be the same, it's not. You know what I'm saying? Like you can take a pre-generated adventure and you can do it verbatim, word for word.
Yeah.
Or you can be like, okay, and this is what I'm doing. I looked at that and I went, oh, there's some things in here that I can use. They've already figured out all the math for me. This is gonna fit some of my plot. So I can use some things that they have in here. You know what I mean? And like I'm not going verbatim about what's gonna happen in Dawn of Defiance, but at the same time, they figured out a lot of the math for me for stuff like that. So now I can concentrate on the big issues because they figured out all the fucking bullshit stuff that I don't need to do.
I mean, with that bridge, you can look at it now because it's already done. With that bridge session you guys did,
Yeah.
I stole that from friggin' one of the books. You know, like in the back they have like little mini missions or whatever.
Oh, really?
I stole part of that and just threw my own spin on it.
Oh yeah, I've done that too.
Those things are very helpful when you're like, I have a general idea. Let me look through this, get some ideas. Or even in there, they might have some different creatures or different ways to do things. So I read through them just to get some different ideas, just help out.
When I started going through the Dawn of Defiance, I was like, oh, I can use this and I can use this, and I went, oh, and this character right here, I'm replacing this with one of the characters that you guys played last session or something like that, or those template missions are awesome. You can, like I said, you can do them verbatim, but lots of times I'll go through and be like, I can use little bits and pieces of this, I just switch shit out as needed, and like to be honest with you, I am not a big fan of people who go through those fucking pre-constructed missions and stories and go through it verbatim and yada yada yada, because that's
I can see
I
why
don't know.
people would need it, but I don't think it's very. I wouldn't do it.
My thing is, I have a little bit of time to play in a game or to fucking run a game. If I'm gonna, I don't want to. If I'm gonna play in somebody's game, I want them to be committed to fucking create something for me. Not
Well, that's what I was gonna say. If I tell X amount of people that I'll GM a game, I'm not gonna do that because I don't want to run this pre-generated campaign. I do that because I have time to make the fucking game for you guys and think outside the box and all that stuff.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna sign myself up for that if I don't have the time for it. I mean, obviously things could change, and at that time maybe the game will end or whatever the case may be. If you all of a sudden you don't have time or whatever the case may be, but back to the canon thing, like breaking canon through the campaign and stuff like that. There's some people, not in our group, but some Star Wars loyalists, whatever you want to call them, that would get fucking pissed if all of a sudden in your campaign we kill Darth Vader or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? I mean, luckily we don't have anyone that ridiculous in our campaign, but you know, I've heard of other players being like that.
I was against it at first, but now that like we've progressed to a certain point, obviously we've totally drifted away from, not totally drifted away, but there are some particular things that are totally not in canon.
Not to like toot my own horn, but even the silly thing on Tatooine that you guys were the sole reason why the Tusken Raiders have fucking rifles right now.
Oh yeah.
You know, that's why they have them in, you know, present time, whatever.
Which
you
is
want to call
kind of cool.
Which is cool. You know, like who the fuck knows really where it came from. But now you can be like, oh well, we were part of fucking history, so to speak. It's
I did
a cool thing to do.
You guys, so like in the video game Knights of the Old Republic, in the second one, there was a kind of bomb called the Mass Shadow. No,
I was thinking about that when you kept saying breaking cans. That was the biggest thing that I could think of.
So like the Exile. What's the name of that? The
Mass Shadow Generator.
Was it the mass gravity generator, something like that. That destroys, basically, totally fucks up the planet Malachor 5 or the moon Malachor 5, and it's totally screwed up. So that happened in game. That thing totally messed up that planet. And I did a ton of research. Nowhere in canon or legends says how that got to where it got, or how it got to where it ended up to screw up that planet and get set off. But it turns out you guys delivered it. You know, like
I don't think he was playing yet.
No, I wasn't.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he wasn't there.
But I mean, like, I was super like, oh, I can't break canon, so I was very diligent, and so in our world, you guys are the ones that delivered that to Malachor 5. That didn't happen. Nowhere in any legends or whatever does it say how that got there, but we did it. You guys did it, which was a nice little, for me, it was a nice little thing to be able to slip into something, you know, like, this is what happened in the video game, but you didn't know about what happened behind the scenes because we did it,
right?
You know, I thought that was pretty cool. So what's next on your list there?
We've gone over it quite a bit as far as the next question, but what advice do you have for PCs/GMs? Like, I know we've touched many friggin' different topics that we've been going.
I want to hear about what you do as a player to prepare for your prepare your character.
That's it. All right. So what do you got?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. I blank out and go urinate.
Yeah, I got to go pee again too.
It's not just me. For a player, I would say what I do. It's I don't know. As stupid as it might sound, it's like method acting in a way.
Yeah.
Like when I go into it, I try to think like in your game, I'm playing Star Wars. I'm being a fucking Jedi. Like, how cool is it to be able to pick something up with your fucking mind basically and throw it across a room, or wield a blade made out of light and swing it around like a fucking madman. Like, that all sounds great, and I also like Plo Koon, so I'm going to be a Keldor, and then go from there. And it was fun, and then you just play from that perspective, and you go in, and then that character kind of found his own as I understood the game more, and, you know, became as enjoyable as he was to play up until the retirement portion. But I always thought afterwards, I was like, I think my next character would be a Rhodian, because that's the other race that I really enjoy out of the whole thing is the fucking Rhodians.
I just like making duck lips.
Yeah. Tentacle hands, fucking got it. Those little suckers.
Suction cups.
Yeah. And but then, you know, getting into his game, and like he was talking to me about it for so long, he was so excited, and at the time I don't even think I had gotten back into yours yet, so I'm like, man, I don't know. But then shit freed up.
Oh,
and
that
I
was
like,
during
I can
your
play.
sabbatical?
Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, I can go back to that one, and then I got the go-ahead to go and join his, so he was all happy about it. So, all right, cool, go do it. So I played that, but I was like, I want to be a drug addict, criminal roadie, and that's what I really want to do. Let's see where this goes with this character, because I'm not shy about, like, if my character fucking dies, he dies. So I'll roll a fucking other one, or I just won't play. Like, it's a fucking game.
Oh, I hope he doesn't die.
Who knows?
It's chaos, but it's fun. That first game that we played together, I know we've had this conversation before, but
Not on Geekin' Out.
yeah, not on Geeking Out. So like when you played him and you were talking to those NPCs and you were like, so your character's a drug addict and he's talking to these NPCs and I'm saying, and my character's on the side of him and he's like, and you're like, oh, I got some stuff in the car. You want to go see it? I think you really want to buy this stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, like I grew up in the projects. And I remember thinking to myself, I know this guy. This guy lived 3 doors down from me. This drug dealer, this drug addict who was always trying to sell some fucking crap to stupid people. And I was just like, oh, this is awesome. I totally know this douchebag.
That's the best part about
You're
being
definitely a method
PC.
actor when it comes to it, yeah.
It's the best part about being a PC is you go in, you have like this code of conduct. That's why the role playing with him and I, 2 Jedi, but like just different perspectives of what that Jedi code means, you know?
Yeah.
It was just fun to play from that perspective. I remember once, that same character that I'd killed, Charlie killed, you know, pass the blame to him.
Davith?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He. I don't
The one you
know.
plotted for a year to kill?
Yep.
Yeah. Super compliment
Charlie-
as a DM, by the way.
Charlie, Mark, and myself, we followed him. He stole something or some shit, and we chased him. This was during the whole holocron thing. I think we were
Yep.
on Tython,
Yep.
and we fucking chased him through these caves and shit, and ended up at this point where he had a Rancor trapped
Yep.
in like this cave.
Ooh.
And he's going through all these tunnel works of shit, and we can't get to him or whatever, but you would come through. Now the role playing was between you and I, and
Yep.
you're him. I'm my Jedi character, and you're like, you know, you're gonna teach me everything on that holocron, or I'm gonna fucking release this thing. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, from a game perspective, I'm like, oh no, here comes the big bad Rancor. But from an actual, like, when I got into my character, I'm like, bullshit. They're like, bullshit. You're not gonna fucking do it. And you're like, yes, I am. And I said, no, you're not. If you fucking let that Rancor go, he kills me. You know full well that I'm the only one that can access this, or you wouldn't have gone through all the fucking trouble of capturing a Rancor to attack us and threaten me with teaching you.
Yep.
We can strike a deal. And then you said, you know, he disappeared, and like 20 minutes went by, and we're sitting there with this Rancor in the cave, sweating it out, and you're like, the fucking door opens up, and we left. And when we wrapped up and everything, you know, we're cleaning up, and everything's going, and you said that you had every intention on making us fight that Rancor, but I fucking role-played you out of it.
Yep.
And you were like, I'm not going to do it, because I did such a good job of, like, of the situation from my perspective on it, and you were like, all right, fine, fuck it, you're not fighting him. And I was like, oh, sweet, I'm playing this character pretty well, if that's the case, if I can, like, role-play out of the scenario, as opposed to rolling the dice, like you were saying. Role-playing can make up an entire session,
Yep.
Right.
and have it be, you know, have it be fucking meaningful still. I took that as a good sign.
That that's another situation where it was like I had something planned, but the player did something that I didn't expect, and I was just like, well, I kind of have to go with that. That's exactly, because not only were you like playing it out, you made me personally go, oh well, yeah, that's exactly true. Like I totally thought Davith would have been sitting there going, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm totally full of shit. No. I totally can't do this.
So I kind of felt like I'd roleplay with him too, because I think our characters were built on the same premise. Like that sort of like towing that line Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and he was on one side of it, I was on another, but we were both so fucking close that we understood each other. And I'm like, I'm calling your bluff, and he was like, this fucker gets me. And then that was it. Like, the exchange was mutual, and we both did it. And it takes a good GM, too, to notice that point. Like, I think you and I had a moment, too, with this. Oh, what the fuck was it?
Was that good?
It was that good. I don't even remember.
You know what's funny? That character, Davith, was a former NPC. He was actually played by someone. And on several occasions, Charlie had said to me, he's like, dude, you're playing that just like how that, I don't want to say his name, how that person would really play that. And when it all came out in the end, I'm like, well, if I'm playing it exactly like that person and everybody else, I'm not sure what that says about that person, because people plotted for a year to fucking kill him.
He wasn't a bad character. He was just a constant pain in the ass.
He was. All right, I'm going to go pee. And I'll be back, and then you can go pee.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be back for number 2 of this tabletop RPG.
No, I'm not ready. Stop.
Start recording.
All right, we're back here. We're all peed and we're fucking hopefully empty for the next 3 minutes. So,
well, some
back
of us
to
are
our
a little
car.
older than the rest of you. And
you have a catheter?
I've aged horribly.
So again, we're talking about the tabletop gaming
still,
experiences, GMing and playing and all that type of shit.
tips. Tips and tricks.
So the last question was what advice do you have for PCs or GMs? You guys finished with that thought process, or you want to go on to the next one?
I think we covered that. You have anything to add?
If I could do it like a quick thing,
Yeah.
I would say tips for GMs: don't overthink it.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, really, you can get so wrapped up in the rules or in your own thoughts that you kind of miss out on the fun of it.
Yeah.
But basically, give yourself like fucking 3 games as a PC or a GM to just kind of get used to the rules, have fun, be loose, and just fucking just dick around for like those 3 games and just go with it. But I mean, use the character sheets. Everything revolves around the character sheets, not the rule books. If you go off the character sheets, you can base anything off of it. And as the GM, you should be on top of the characters' sheets and know what they can and can't do, and build your campaign around that, and have a story you want to tell. Like, you're the one that's providing that framework. So when you have a story to tell and you want something fun to happen, if you're big into sorcery, or if you're big into crime novels, or you're big into science fiction, push that story no matter what type of thing you're telling. You could be in a fantasy game like D&D and still tell a science fiction story. You can be in a game like Star Wars and still tell a fucking medieval epic.
Right.
It doesn't matter. And as a PC, same fucking thing. Don't overthink it. Don't go crazy with your character. Develop a little bit of a backstory if you want, because it's what you like to do, but then you're just going to end up disappointed when your character doesn't perform when the game happens. Also, as a GM, don't gear it towards one thing or the other. Combat versus traps. Like, don't even funnel yourself into that type of thing. Be open to all of it at any given time. Let it form, flow, and free.
Yeah.
I like that you mentioned the character sheet, because what I actually did...
I'm leaving.
Alright, good. As a GM, to help myself when I'm building sessions, I don't do this every session, but actually
It shows.
actually have like Excel spreadsheet with XP and other shit, but actually have what skills everyone is trained in. So basically, if someone's trained in mechanics, every once in a while I'll throw a mechanics fucking skill challenge in a counter. So that way, the person that says, okay, I want to be a good mechanic, doesn't feel like you fucking wasted that choice. Or, whatever it is. Or even like the social science or whatever, in particular with Star Wars, I'll throw in like a chance to friggin' throw in like galactic history or whatever. Galactic knowledge, whatever it is. So that's one thing I do with a character sheet as far as a GM tool to help myself and make the PC's friggin' choices actually matter a little bit more than just...
Yeah, what's the point in wasting all that time picking trained abilities if you're not going to fucking use them?
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do. So my take on being a PC is how generic it is. Be the fucking PC. Meaning, be devoted to it. As soon as the GM says, okay, this is what happened last game, or however he starts the game, all of a sudden you're that character. You put everything aside as much as you can, obviously, in the real world, and just fucking focus on this game, and just fucking do what your character would do, play as your character would play, and not get, mad or upset with other players how they're acting towards you, like outside the game. Like obviously in game, if it's role play wise, that's fucking sweet. Be mad, kill them, whatever you want to do, but keep it in game.
I've shot and fought with I think every PC in your campaign.
Not me.
At some point.
No, yeah, not you. Yeah,
Not
not
me.
you and not Nez.
Not Nez. But like for me, as far as DMing, if I was going to give tips for like somebody just getting into it, don't be afraid. Well, no, be prepared to improvise.
No, be afraid, but
Be prepared to improvise. Don't be afraid to go off the rails and not do the thing that you planned. At the same time, like you got to be good at getting your players back on track without railroading them and just being a dick about it. The other thing is, as far as the rules, try to know the rules, the basic rules as best you can. But don't worry too much about it. But at the same time, the better you know the rules, the more confident you'll feel about breaking them.
Right.
So, know the rules, but don't worry about the rules.
And
the story is paramount.
From what you were saying, the players are gonna pick up on you not being confident in your story or the rules and all that shit.
Absolutely.
So, probably the first game or something, you're like, okay, this guy is over his head, or this girl's over her head, whoever's GMing. And
We don't want to assume the genders.
Which, when I first started DMing, I was totally in over my head. But I faked it.
Same here.
I
yeah,
faked
same
it
here.
until...
I was over my head when all of a sudden I had 8 PCs. And I was like, how did this happen? I started with like 5. What the fuck?
Yeah.
And I got wrapped into like what the PCs were doing, and quickly I was like, okay, I can't do this. Next session I have to be different. I have to fucking run shit and keep it going and try to,
It totally went off the rails when when Charlie's character and you started eating fucking people.
That was
Jesus
the best.
Christ.
That was
was the
awesome.
best.
But that session, I was wrapped into the comedy of what they were doing more than me being like, I have to run this game. So that's what I was trying to
say. As far
take a
as
step back.
like you asked how I get into being a character, I think that session was probably one of the best moments of how I get into character, because 2 doors were
definitely get
blown
into
off and
character.
people are shot at, and I swear Charlie and I did not even know something was happening on the other side of the board. We were so fucking invested in cutting people up for his Trandoshan to eat that we didn't even care that the rest of the team were getting shot and killed on the other side of the door.
Well, what I like what you said too, and what you did in that session was the front door got blown up, and without hesitation, like, okay, I throw a grenade in response. Like, you didn't go see who the fuck it was.
No.
They were threatening you and
Be your character.
your fucking crew or whatever. You're just like, I'm gonna retaliate. I don't give a shit. Like, it was my mother out there. She threw a grenade at me. I'm just gonna fucking try to blow
There's
her
no
up.
re's for my mother to be throwing a grenade through the fucking door. That's just how it is.
It's funny when you were saying, like, all of a sudden I got all these people when this is, you felt a little in over your head. From my perspective, when I was like, I'm going to play in this game and I don't have to be the DM in a game with Charlie and Dutch. I'm ready to go for a ride.
Yeah.
I got shotgun, motherfucker.
Yeah, definitely entertaining. Another sort of to elaborate on what you guys were talking about of preparing for GMing and stuff like that, or games. Don't over prepare, but prepare enough that you're ready for
that's a
if the characters don't go off the railroad. So you have things planned from A to Z, but you're not overly preparing for hours and hours. Then as soon as a PC does something that isn't kosher with that, you're like, what the fuck? I spent all this time doing this shit.
Don't be so rigid that if somebody takes a left instead of a right, it throws a fucking
like,
monkey wrench in
what the
your
hell
whole
do
shit.
I do now? So you got to be quick on your fucking feet. You have to be prepared, but don't over prepare that you feel like it's a waste of time. So it's finding that nice, balance is what you learn as a GM eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only way to sort of do that is GMing, trying it and going about it, trial by fire sort of thing.
It's just like life. You got to go in and fuck it up a little before you get good at it.
And I don't know what you guys could say, obviously be better going against or agreeing with me, but I think I've grown as a friggin' GM from the first session till now. Like, I think that almost every single game someone says, "Oh, I like this part. This was one of the better sessions. This was the best session." So it's like, okay, well, that's good to fucking hear.
I think for me, like one of the last games, I think it was me that said the last game was the best one so far. But I think it was the best one for me in a way is because I totally went.
It was pretty personal for you too,
Yeah.
as far as the character goes too.
Yeah, it was personal, and I kind of went like. I think for a while now, my character has been the hey, come on guys, let's all take a deep breath and
Right.
and especially in between,
You
like
broke
into
up,
personal.
mine and
Right, I got between
Japheth's,
you
fight.
and
We were about to get
your character and Japheth. I also got between you and eating like a third person on that other fucking game we were talking about.
What is the
Like,
common theme in your whole story?
the common
That he
theme?
was fighting someone or doing something he probably shouldn't have.
Come on, guys! I don't know. My character has a soft spot for Scaro. He does like
I grew
okay,
up 3 doors down from this fucking guy.
like sure he's a psychopathic drug addict, but you know he's not all
We
bad.
all need a hug and love sometime, right?
Name one redeeming quality. Hey, I can't do everything.
Yeah.
He really can shoot things.
He shoots things
He
really.
does.
He's good at killing people.
Somehow on drugs, he hits everything and kills everything, which is fucking great.
Good at killing people, unless it's a coup de grace. And
Yes,
that's another
at
important.
which point, I just shoot their ears.
That's another important DMing rule. It's pronounced fucking coup de grace,
Yes.
not
Coup
coup
de
de grace. If
Coup
anybody
de
says
grace.
anything else,
Oh
you
my
kill
God.
their character right away.
Reading comprehension.
That is what we're going to talk about later. House rules.
House rules are fun.
House rules are fun.
What was I going to say? I had another fucking PC thing. I don't remember. We'll continue. Maybe I'll come back to it.
You remember?
Yeah, I remember eventually. So, as a GM, which we talked about this a little bit, what do you want to see from a player?
What do I want to see from a player?
Yeah.
Engagement. I want to
Yeah.
know. I want to know that what I am doing is getting them engaged and they're having fun. Like I said earlier, like the fact that you guys plotted for a year to kill somebody that I had been to kill a character that not. Well, I didn't create the character, but like I've been using this character. I've been playing him for like over a year, a couple of years, I think. The fact that you guys are so engaged enough to plot for over a year and a half to kill him, like that is a huge compliment to me. Like I know I've been in some games where like if you fucking killed the DM's main guy, he gets all pissy, and I'm like, no, that wasn't what it was like to me. It was
Right.
like, oh really, dude? You guys plotted for a year to kill him? That's adorable. I love that. I just for what I want to see from a player, I want to see that they're engaged. Not that I require that from them, but because if they're engaged, I know I'm doing my job.
Right. And that gets back to the searching through books or fucking
Yeah,
the internet or something for rules. All of a sudden, that changes the instinct.
yeah,
So I mean, I think I jump right on that bandwagon for seeing them engaged. So some of those things are as much I look at my phone while I'm playing too sometimes, but people being off their fucking phone, paying attention to what you're saying or other players are saying, paying attention during the other people's turns and stuff like that, and what you're saying, what other players are saying, people actually laughing at what's happening, and not just being like, oh, okay. And another thing is learning the fucking rules yourself eventually, not always being like, well, what do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do now? If you play for fucking 10 years, you should know how to fucking roll damage and attack and all, the basic things that you do almost every session. So
True.
I think that's part of it.
I think as far as like getting the player engaged, another thing you got to remember is every player is different and they're all going to engage in different ways, and you have to figure out what that is for each person. Like for you, when I would do behind the scenes stuff through like Facebook messaging and stuff, whatever, you were always very responsive. I found like that was a way to get to correspond with you. For you, it was completely different. You are in the moment all the time, and if you don't and the thing is, you wouldn't respond. You don't respond much on like the Facebook or even like the text message or whatever. But when you did, every time it was just like, holy shit. Like, that was crazy. I didn't see that coming at all. It was like times that you put these text messages in that totally summed up conversations that you weren't involved in. And and I was just like, how did he fucking know that? Somebody's feeding this guy information.
This is like a toot my own horn scenario again. That issue you had, my character killed somebody, and
Which time?
This is my other character, actually, the one that didn't kill that many people, but yet you still think he's a dark side. But the other one, you harbor him like
With
he's
the red lightsaber.
We gotta play all that out too. But and you were having issues with another crew member, and basically, this is when you had messaged me and said that you were gonna make a DM rule because it had caused so much shit. And I was like, well, let me role play it out first and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And you were like, all right, role play it out. If it doesn't go, I'll have to make a DM ruling. So I thought about it for a minute, and I fucking I talked to Mark for a second because he was a big thing on it, and I wanted to go to him on like a sidebar and be like, in character, this is what I'm doing. So I'm coming to you in character and saying this, and then see what he says, and then I went and role played. So I prefaced it with like after a 5 to 10 minute meeting with this guy, I call this meeting, and I blew this whole thing out. And you messaged me and asked if Nick said something.
Yeah.
Then you messaged me and asked if Mark said something. And Mark was standing next to me and asked if you said something. And I was like, that was fucking perfect, because all three of you blamed one different individual, thinking that no one said shit to me about anything.
We were all in on the conversation that you just fucking summed up. Right. So that's why we're all like, who the fuck?
Yeah, it was none of you. And none of you named, like, it wasn't like you and Mark assumed him or like anything. It was like you assumed him, he assumed him, you assumed, it was like, yes, so good.
That's what I'm saying. When you finally come in on those like rare moments where you will respond to the to a text message or something on Facebook or whatever, it's a killer. It's a fucking killer. The in retrospect, like Mark, on the other hand, he's not like, he'll do a little bit of the Facebook stuff like you, but he's not really gonna get. He's kind of like you in that way, like. Where he thrives in the, like, getting engaged is when me and him are sitting down playing cards, or just like sitting down, or even like doing a project or something. That's when he opens up and he's like, hey, I want to call this NPC or this character, or I want to call just Select the Hut.
When it's casual.
When
the pressure's on, it's tough. And that's probably some advice for PCs too, because role playing, I mean, look at our I think out of all the games that you've run, that I've run, and that you've run, if we combine them all, that role playing between you and I was probably the most role playing I've seen between two PCs in any of those games. Mm-hmm. That actually was to the point where it wasn't planning. It was like there was shit happening. Yeah. Exactly. There was an emotional
to the point
response.
Where there was some players that were like, "Did they plan that ahead of time?"
Yeah, right.
No, they didn't. That was fucking crazy.
And it took us a couple of we had to get the giggles out. Basically, is how we were putting it. It's like we got to kind of put the joking aside. But once it fucking hit a stride, we committed to being in character, and we fucking role played the entire thing, and it went well. But then almost immediately afterwards, I had to switch gears and talk to Mark, and it was a different role-playing experience. Yeah. And I had to, pull back, because I had just gotten invested into role-playing with you, and it was a different scenario. And it's like, okay, hold on, let me pull back a little bit and get it. It's just like you said, you've got to understand how different people engage, and then engage in that respect.
Yeah.
Plus character level, obviously, me being a Jedi, and him being Mandalore at this time, he's going to, as a character, act differently towards what just happened and all that sort of stuff. So
I think everybody in your group played their characters very well, even if it didn't fit like if you're picturing it as a movie, even if their dialogue would have been like, oh, that was kind of a shitty line or something, it fucking fit to the game, and I think it fit well.
There are certain times where it's where a player is, okay, I'm not as charismatic as my character. This is what I want to say, so I'm going to roll my charisma or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to give liberties to that.
I think
That's a good point.
back to the GM thing too, is what you just said. If someone's like, "Oh, I'm trying to say this," all right, roll a charisma check. You'd be like, "Okay, well, is this what you want to say?" Like, you have to help out your players,
Right.
with trying to get out what they want to get out sometimes.
Yeah.
And then if that's what they want, then
And
no
no
matter
matter
too, roll it.
advice for PCs. This is from a wrestling standpoint. As a wrestling fan, I can't remember who was like credited with saying it, but it's a common thing with wrestling. The most successful gimmicks for a wrestler is their own personality cranked up to like a fucking 11. So it's one thing to act and play a character, but if it's not you, like if you can't be charismatic, why would you make a negotiator or someone who's in? If you're not an articulate person, why would you make a character whose entire basis is speaking? You know, why would you make like a princess, not Princess Leia, but like a fucking Amidala, like someone sitting in front of the Senate talking character when you can't string a sentence together yourself?
Well,
if you're a big fucking bruiser, make a big fucking bruiser. You know, you can still play it as a different fantasy aspect. Like, I mean, even if you look at my characters from, and this happened over time. This wasn't an intention of mine, but my Jedi and my criminal are kind of the same fucking character. Flawed,
I see that, yeah.
Flawed with some sort of I mean, you haven't. I mean, you're not going to be able to. We're still low level within your game, but his ulterior motives and his drive, it's the same fucking thing. It's just where it comes from, sort of thing. You know what I mean? It's just because it's easy for me to play that type of character.
Yeah. Just to play devil's advocate, I will say there's something in the even if you're not the charismatic guy, these the kind of gaming gives you that option.
Yeah, because you can roll those dice. That's a good
You
point.
can roll those dice for that, and you can say, "Hey, I'm not as charismatic, but this is what I want to portray. I want to let them know that I'm not a threat and that I'm friendly. So I'm gonna roll."
Yeah.
Well, that's
You
what
know?
we were talking about earlier too. Why we would want to play good Jedis who are assholes in real life. So we want to try something different.
Right.
And that's what these type of games allow you to do, is fucking try something that you normally wouldn't be.
So you can't, but at the same time, on like a personal level, I don't think you can be something you're not. So when you like for you to come in as a Jedi, you come in, like, yes, it's easy to be an asshole, and you can be, and like we can all joke about being assholes and stuff like that in real life, but I think we've reaped some benefits of not really being assholes in life. So like you play this character to basically, it almost perpetuates your own character. Like, this is what I would be if I were a fucking Jedi.
I mean,
and not dealing with work every day and people that I see every day. You know, this is a different scenario.
Well, that's the thing. Like, people are complex. We can all fill the roles of different aspects of good and evil and whatnot. You know, I find you very stoic at times, very held together and don't talk a lot, very serious or whatever. I think that attributed to you pulling off the fact that I thought your Jedi was very Jedi-like.
And you know, to counter my own point, players like Keith and Kai can get so into their character, even though, like, you could probably say that I get well into character. I'm just playing off my own personality, whereas they are able to commit to a character and fucking play it through fully. So it almost goes,
times, like,
it almost goes to what you said about engagement. Like, how do you engage? My characters slowly morph into the same sort of thing because it's all I'm really capable of playing, but I do it well. Other people are able to commit to being a character and play it so well that it's a total difference of their personality, and other people do it and it's like an exaggeration of their own personality, but it's still playing off.
Right.
So, you know, there's kind of
I mean, every character, even though you might not admit it, is a part of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
Well, a part of you is in that character, rather.
Yeah, imagination, actuality.
Right.
You know,
Well, you want it
whatever.
where you see yourself in this universe, or this fucking D&D campaign or whatever. You know, you always put a part of yourself in there.
Yeah, I've never done a fucking drug in my life besides alcohol and caffeine, but I'm playing a drug addict Rhodian.
Back to one of the questions, who the fuck knows which one. As far as a GM making a campaign and stuff, you can also pull off or build sessions or encounters or whatever for things that are important to people in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So since you have kids or something, if kids are threatened in the game, you might act differently versus someone that does not have kids. Even though in the game you don't have kids, blah blah blah. But that's gonna strike a nerve with you in game.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, oh, those kids shouldn't be suffering or whatever the case may be. So that's a good way, obviously, if you know people personally that you game with, that you can pull some of that off.
Yeah, like when we ran this session a few years back, he and I like co-ran a group where it was 6 female players that they were trying to get involved. So we made an entire story about forcibly removing clitorises. And they had to. I'm just fucking around with you. This
I was like,
happened.
when did we do this? I was on board, and then like all of a sudden, I was like, what the?
Oh, thank God that's fake. Holy
I
shit!
was like, I want to be part of this.
But they were really invested. You know, they were like, oh my god, I really see this.
I have to role play it.
Oh my God! You fuckers do that to me every time.
One poor woman critically failed, and we had to just.
Yeah. That's great.
Holy shit! What's next on that list?
So, on the other end
Now
of
that Tony's in cold sweats.
Thank God I don't have to talk about that for real.
As a player, what do you want to see from a GM?
Oh, that's a good question.
So it's just obviously the opposite of
Go. I want to start with you this time. What do you want to see from a
me,
GM?
as you can see from what I do as building the Legos and all that shit, I like to see what the fuck, like 3D as much as possible. Obviously, I know I can't make it all the time. People can't make it all the time. It's a lot of work to do stuff.
Yeah.
I want to see my terrain more than just flat, like just a map or something.
Yeah.
That's fine.
So that's
once
the
in a while.
first thing that comes to mind from you. No
Pretty
shit.
much.
Because just to go off your terrain idea and not to interrupt too long, I think of it more from that same perspective, because I was thinking a similar thing, but what I think of is I put my character into it, like why, when we play your game, like why the Zeltron lover thing was so fucking funny, is because like I really sit there and I'm like, I'm sitting on a couch right now, in this room,
With
and
a
they're
with
talking.
a red alien.
And he's sitting there referring to these two people who are right in front of him as things they are not. With visual, like they're fucking right there, and he thinks it's a droid. Like, I don't understand.
I think that was my fault. Maybe I didn't
No,
explain
it wasn't.
right.
You showed a picture. Like, there was no reason, and that's why it was so funny to me.
Red humanoid.
Yeah, but I
great.
didn't need to see, like, I didn't even want to see it. To me, the terrain is so secondary. I don't care about like a big elaborate Lego thing or a big drawn out map, or those
Well, if you
battle
let me
systems
explain
are
a little bit
awesome looking.
further.
Go on.
Son of a bitch. But I like to see not just terrain, but like what we're doing. So if it's, say it's, for instance, when you drew the friggin' Sarlacc and all that stuff,
Yeah.
that was cool to me. Like you could just be like, oh, there's a Sarlacc in front of you. Like I like to see like what the fuck is going on
Yeah.
in front of me. Just to, I'm a visual person. Like even just how I learn and stuff like that. I have to see someone do something, then I can do it. You can tell me,
Yeah, me
okay,
too.
go through these steps. I like to see what the fuck is going. It makes it easier for me to friggin' get myself into the game if I see it.
For me, like that, drawing that Sarlacc out and all the like because it was a jungle Sarlacc. It wasn't like a sand Sarlacc
Right.
like from the movie. So like when I started drawing that, I was like, that was one of the style of that was something I kind of do naturally. So that was fun for me just to draw it. But if drawing those straight, dungeon crawls with the tunnels and whatnot, I'm okay at doing that too, but I don't enjoy making that as much as I like just doing a free form of a Sarlacc, tentacles and leaves and tentacles and vines and blah, blah, blah. That was way more fun to draw.
I think as a GM or just a person, I like building Legos and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, now I get to fucking put this into my games, and I like seeing it anyway, so hopefully my players like to see it as well.
I gotta say that inspired me to a certain degree. Like once I saw you building shit, I was like, I need to step up my fucking game. I'm not really pulling it out on the fucking 3D shit. So that's kind of why I invested in that battle systems terrain, which we'll get into in another segment of this podcast,
Right.
I think, right? So, but
and double awesome part or cool thing about it is I get to play with my son, play with Legos. He helps me build
Right.
stuff. He has some ideas too, and just like it's fucking awesome all around.
the fact
basically.
that you incorporated Legos using like Lego dioramas into your gaming, and the fact that it also gives you an excuse to buy more Legos as an adult, I was like, that was fucking genius.
I bought a set just because I needed one Tusken Raider to be the leader of that little clan.
I bought a set to make my character for your game.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you then.
Sure.
With that desire for the visual stuff, I think as a GM, a problem you run into when you have like the battle grids or any kind of thing that you're like, okay, everything is what the fuck is a square? Like a foot by
5 feet.
5 feet by 5 feet.
by
Yeah.
5.
So you've got 5 feet by 5 feet. Your speed is 6 squares, and everyone's moving along. I feel that it fucks the pacing of the game up depending on what kind of thing you're going for. It's happened. I honest to shit think it's a 50-50 ratio on fucking up pacing. Whereas if you go like I'm saying with the role playing portion a little bit heavy, and you just say things like you shouldn't say things like there's a Sarlacc in front of you. You should be descriptive of it. But I understand what you're saying with seeing it is one thing, but then I think the pacing is fucked up. Like with our last session, I said to you, the pacing's fucked up right now, so I'm just sitting back waiting because everyone's just standing on a fucking staircase for too long. And like the pacing when we were going into that house that I threw the grenade through the door, everyone was debating what to do with the fucking door, so I kicked it in. But that was just being an impulsive character, not being like a dick PC. I'm just saying like the character I played, it didn't fit his narrative, so I kicked the door in. And with yours, like I stayed back. It was the opposite approach because that it is a different character.
Yeah.
So I sat back. So I'm like, I need this fucking pace to pick up before I can act on this emotion that I'm feeling as a character. So I feel like if you express more and you say more, you keep the pace in your control as a DM. You're not sitting there going, your turn, your turn, your turn, your turn, and everyone's going 6 squares, 6 squares. I have a standard action. I'm going to open the door. I mean, you're like, what do you want to do? Can I move closer? You're fucking there. You know, there's no drawn out, if you're going up the fucking stairs, go up the fucking stairs. You know what I mean? Just to keep going.
The only way I'll do the turn thing is if I know something's going to happen. if you
even
remember,
when it's freeform though, you fall into the same trap.
If you remember, the fuck, in the dungeon, like not the Sith dungeon, but the Sith fortress, or whatever, the last fight on Tatooine, there was a big fucking stretch. There was the factory, the hangar, and
where
the medical building.
Shot up right
like it would have took you guys like 35 fucking turns to get across that. I'm just like, you guys made it because there was no more threats. I knew there was no more threats.
Right.
And you guys just went there. We could have took fucking who knows how many turns to actually
and
do
at
it.
that point, you just give a brief thing, like, all right, as you walk up, you go through. There's some damage here, that, like how you spelled out stuff like the doors being imploded and whatnot, and how it got that way as people were walking through.
Well, I did that on purpose. I had that planned out for a while because, all right, so full disclosure, like, not only did I want to describe how that place looked, but I wanted to say things that I thought would fuck with you.
And them, too. Out loud saying my escape, so if there were any doubts in their mind about anything, it looks like I struggled to get out. And you said things out loud that it was like you kind of played off the metagaming at that point, because how do you not unhair? Oh, but in the meantime, you saved this child from this thing, from this situation.
Right. But I also, you are exactly right. But one of the things I was hoping for was as I took you through, like when you started running through it, and I was like, oh, here's my narrative. This is the narrative that I've been waiting for. Like I wanted to say, I was hoping that things I said would affect you, and because this was a point in the game, because like a couple of months ago I had told you, I was like, you can't tell me your motivation anymore. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to the other players. It's not fair to me. You were gonna like. We had conspired enough to get you back into the game, and while you were gone in game, real life, you know what I mean? You had to not play for a while, but in game, we had conspired enough to get you back into it, right? So, and like I felt like at that point I was just like, okay, we don't have to like plot anymore.
Yeah,
you're
if
back
you knew
in.
Either way, it would have been that metagaming situation of like, how do you as a DM not know what the fuck is going to happen?
Like I had thought about it for a while. I was like, for lack of a better term, like I think we're getting to that point where we're metagaming. Yeah. So I need to let this go. Like, and I had presented options to you, and I said, this is your option. You can do anything you want. You can, if you want to be good, evil, become a trash man, whatever. It's up to you. So don't tell
why
me.
He and we still want to role play out that second portion, because I still haven't set up like an official decision on that point. Because there's a bunch of things that I kept, because when we were role playing, there were two things that I was sitting on that I'm like, I'm gonna wait, and if something gets said or if something happens, this is what I'm gonna do. And they didn't happen, basically because of the roles and whatnot. It wasn't like someone failed or anything like that. It was just the way it rolled. No pun intended. And then when we escaped, your character still had doubts though now, because now it's like, well, what the hell happened? So like, you were convinced at first, we fought, you were still convinced, now you're not. Even though I came out with that red lightsaber that you mentioned, you're still not convinced. Now you're not convinced anymore. So the role playing still kind of needs to continue past that point.
Yeah, because I heard that you said like run away or something, so I still think there's some good there or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely like.
And it's all because like you said, play it close to chest. I've been keeping it very, very tight up until this point. That's why I role played out with him so discreetly, because I didn't want to say either way, because I still hadn't made up my mind at that point in any sort of thing. And the things that I was going to decide were the tipping points, none of them ever happened. So it still kept me in that middle point. And if you remember that part when Ziola Jin and the 3 other Sith people came up, when she said go ahead and attack, I did nothing. Mm-hmm. It was because I still wasn't sure if I was going to attack her or go on with the rest of the point. It wasn't until the second round and the dialogue that you provided that I was like, all right, I'm going to go out with this red saber instead, because I think this is the better course of action. But it led me to be able to say to him and the rest of them, run. Like the first thing I did after igniting that red saber was come out and tell the team to run.
Plus, I don't know if you did this on purpose, but you attack droids.
Yeah.
You didn't attack any actual PCs or anything like that, so...
I attacked the droids.
To your point, before we get too far ahead and I forget, as a GM, you have to make sure you tell the players, and including yourself, tell yourself or whatever, to not metagame and call them out if they're metagaming. Like sometimes you have to be
that type of stuff.
Yeah, you have to be the judge and jury sort of thing with that. Be like, okay, you guys. So I know what I do constantly during the game. Like someone said, Kate was one of our my new player. Someone's like, oh, we want to go around the table and say who we are and what we look like and what blah blah blah. I said, no, we don't want to do that because no one knows Kate yet.
Right.
You can do that later on the ship or something, role play wise, but we're not going to do that now because it makes no fucking sense. She doesn't know any of you guys in game.
I think next game would be a perfect opportunity for
that.
Right,
if it comes up, if like the opportunity comes.
I think we need it. The only thing I remember as a character when I first got there was nothing, actually, now that I think about it. Because when I got in there, she was still running around the back room area with you. And then I don't remember shit up to that point.
That part was hilarious.
You had me shoot her.
Yeah, it was very comical.
Yeah.
She was running around with the golden dildo, they were calling it. And it was like keep away, and then...
For me, it was like... I felt like I was in a Jackie Chan movie, and I was Jackie Chan. Because I'm trying to get the golden statue off of her, and she's running away with it, but I'm also fighting off bad guys, so I gotta like punch this guy, and then I gotta roll and try to cut her off, and like, oh, I fucking missed it, are you kidding me? Oh, here comes another bad guy, I gotta fucking fight this bad guy. Shoot her if you have to.
Yeah, that's what he did.
Yeah, which was kind of, that whole game totally made me break, not break character, but made my character go against what he's striving to be. Like, I want to try to make that character like a Shaolin monk kind of vibe to him.
It was for the first time, I don't know if anyone noticed it, like, in the game, but it made your character vulnerable. Like, you were, like, how, not to get too deep with it.
You stepped out of, like, a comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
but
yeah.
this is the first time anyone sees you, like...
You panicked a little.
Yeah, you panic and go
shoot
crazy.
them all. You know, before you're like,
go
don't
crazy
shoot them,
for something,
don't shoot them.
this is the one thing in who knows how many years or months or whatever it's been that is part of your home and what you feel is sacred, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's like, I don't know if anyone picked it up, but I did as a, trying to...
I didn't. I was totally in the moment.
Like
I gotta go get this, I'll be back.
So back to the actual question. As a player, I want to see it from a GM, put as much into this as I put into it. Meaning, going through the books and stuff like that, trying to be the best I can as a player. Not to, like, cut every corner and get every ability to make me the best attacker or whatever, but think about his character and go through the paces and all the preparation to do that. I want to see that from the GM as far as the world they create for us. Create for me, rather. So I know some GMs could be very lazy, and I haven't come across any, luckily, but I'm sure some GMs could just be like, oh, okay, we're just going to fight these 5 stormtroopers every single month or week or whatever, how often you join or get together. And it's just like stale and boring, and I don't want to be a part of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I think my answer will be the same as far as what I want from a player or what I want from a GM. Like, I want them to be engaged. I want the GM to engage me or get me engaged. You know, make me react like you did last game. You know, I want stuff like that. Like, I want you to make it personal to me. I want you to kind of fuck with my head, or, you know, like when I set a parameter for my character, and you're somehow able to make him not break character, but like you said, like you've made him uncomfortable. He's reacting, he's lashing out or whatever. Like, that was perfect.
Well, what I did for that too, which I think I already explained to you guys, but for the Jedi auction thing, you guys had just that goal. Like, that was all you guys probably figured you were going to have to do. Now, all of a sudden, the golden friggin' dinosaur thing comes into play. All of a sudden, some of the people that are being auctioned off, you guys know from past campaign or the past episodes.
Oh, wait, wasn't one of the guys the guy from the ship that I helped?
Yeah,
exactly.
The two Duros guys.
Both of them?
The two
brothers.
We gotta help them.
The mechanic and the captain, Shrock Verdi, that
I want them on my ship.
We got them out.
And,
they're on the ship.
Fuck yeah.
Not yet. You guys are still.
I'll talk to them. I want to talk to them. I had a
So those two guys are there. The only person you really didn't know
was the Jedi.
Well, you know that the Jedi was human and stuff like that, and you knew everyone else besides Kate's character.
Oh, the only one we didn't know was Kate.
Yeah.
All right.
So everyone else you knew and you.
We know her now, though.
Elimination.
We know that character now, though.
Sort of. Across the elimination, you figured that was the Jedi. You guys were. So that obviously threw again a monkey wrench into your guys' plan that you're just gonna go there, pay for the Jedi, and fucking leave and be done with the session.
Well, from my character's perspective, as soon as, because I know you were upstairs at this point, but it was me, Japheth, and Nez, and we had the conversation. Like, when we found out there were more people being auctioned off, I was like, oh, we're gonna save them all, and Japheth, or Kaya's character, was like, yeah, well, I can see from your perspective why you'd want to do that. I totally want to help you. You know, I think we should try to help everybody too. But Nez was like, we're here for like one dude.
Yeah.
Why don't we just, and I was just like, okay, I totally respect that. Like,
he told me after, like, he didn't realize that was Kate's character, and he was totally the whole time saying, like, we don't want to save that Zabrak. We don't care about that Zabrak. We don't know that Zabrak. And Kate was right there, just like, probably like, what the fuck?
That is great.
Because no one knew what race she was, or
right.
Oh, it's fucking
species
awesome.
or whatever. So it's just like fucking great.
Fuck that Zabrak.
And that's back to what I said earlier. Why you don't want to go around the table and see who the fuck you are. Like, she could have been like, I'm a Zabrak. I look like this guy. And all this stuff. Like, that was just perfect because it made it friggin' genuine. You know what I mean?
Totally. George would have probably not said that.
No, he would be like, let's save her first because she's a PC. Which that's, again, back to what I said earlier, too, is what people have trouble with is, if that's a PC, who gives a fuck it's a PC? It's just another friggin' character in this world. Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a PC or an NPC. All characters matter.
When Charlie's character was introduced as Park on Nar Shaddaa, everyone was so welcoming to him.
Yeah.
And he was a Trandoshan that ate people.
Yeah, it was
like,
a little...
like, oh, come on our ship, let's go. You know Scarl? This guy's sketchy anyway, but that's okay.
Well, we weren't all like, yeah, come on.
No,
it was kind of like...
No one even talked to him or had a question about it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was a whirlwind. That whole game was a fucking whirlwind.
But that's my argument with... I'd probably do the same thing. I'm not saying I'm, like, immune to it or something like that, but when it's a PC, no one has any questions. Like, they have to be a part of the party and all this shit.
Yeah, so that's true.
You try to get out of that mind frame that there's a real person behind this character.
I had the same problem the first time I played Saga Edition, someone else was DMing, and my character, well, two new players had come to the group, and they were both Sith. My character had made friends with a Jedi, but was a former Sith, and I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want to be a Jedi, but I didn't want to be a Sith either. And when these two new players came on, one of the players that was already there was like, "Yeah, come on, let's go. You want to watch some TV and pop some popcorn and shit, you know?" And I was just like, "Whoa!" And I tried to be in character and stay in game. I'm like, "Whoa, what the fuck are you doing? We're not just letting these guys. Are you kidding me? These guys are Sith. We're not just letting them on the ship." And the guy and that particular person was a total dipshit about this situation and was kind of a fucking asshole about it. And I was just like, you know, like, what do you do? Like, you're playing the character out. You're doing exactly what you just said. You're doing it right. I was trying to do it right. And then it's like, no, they're a PC. Come on. Let's.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably a good advice thing for DMs, like, to go with what you were saying before. You had a DM who's running a certain kind of game. If you're playing, let's say, a good character, and then here come two Siths, what are they going to do when your story unfolds? They're going to do shit that your character disagrees with. But now, technically, the only way for you to play is to concede to that and then do the same things. But now you're not your character anymore. So if you're telling a Sith story, then fucking tell a Sith story and tell everybody they've got to be Sith.
Right.
Don't give everybody ultimate freedom to create characters and then expect the story to pan out the way you planned it.
As a GM, don't be afraid to say no. When you were in the Kate meeting when we were making her character and stuff like that, she wanted to make a Sith. And I was like, you can't. There's a Jedi in the freaking group. That's not going to work. You know what I mean? So she had no problem with it, of course. But it was like, some GMs would be like, oh, I want to make my players happy. You can be a Sith. We'll see where it goes. How is that going to work with the group dynamic as it is?
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
Agreed.
you just have to lay the groundwork first and then go from there.
I mean, if you're going to give people freedom like that, you got to make sure you get your fucking ducks in a row ahead of time.
Yeah, like what you did, just no one knows anything, we'll see where it goes sort of thing.
Yeah.
Let the role play fucking happen or whatever. And at worst, PC dies and you're the reroll.
At worst, the PCs all kill each other.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think this is going. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But at least, at worst, you did an experiment, different way to do it, and now you live and you learn sort of thing.
Yeah. I think it'll turn out fine.
And I think, I think me and him agree it's a fucking sweet idea.
Oh, yeah.
Thinking outside the box sort of thing. So I wouldn't be like opposed from trying it or something myself at some day. Do you guys have anything to add for GM or player sort of thing? As far as like what you want to see from a player, what you want to see from a GM?
Probably 100 things, but I think we covered enough.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it, sent it through the whole friggin' podcast or whatever anyway, here and there.
My only real thing is I hate railroading. I hate the idea of not being able to role play. I think that's the most important thing to a role playing game is the role playing. So when you get bogged down with rules or combat, it's now not a role playing game. It's a combat game following a strict fucking rule book, and I think that gets a little ridiculous. Whereas like if you can role play a situation, and not necessarily saying like talk your way out of a combat situation, but if you spend an entire session shooting the shit, making deals, doing other things like that, I think that can be just as fucking fun.
Yeah,
totally. And a lot of characters, they like that stuff. They like puzzles. They like traps. They like visuals. They like role playing, or they like some of them like combat. Some of them like massive, epic scale fucking army battles. Some of them like one-on-one single combat. Find out what your players want to do and go with it.
Definitely.
And that reminded me of something too. Is change it up with your encounters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't always make it
A spaceship battle. Don't always make it.
Yeah, whatever. So that's what I've been trying to do. Throw different scenarios at you guys. An auction, a bridge thing. So that was more like militarily from different.
I remember
things.
like one of the first games you played. It was a complete stealth mission, and at the end you were like, "Whoa, that's different. I never did a stealth mission before."
Right.
Everybody was hiding. Everybody was being sneaky. The as far as railroading though, I totally agree with you. Don't fucking railroad your players, but if you have to, be sneaky and do it in game.
You've got to corral them, but you don't have to railroad them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So-
Like a corral, you figure if you're all sheep going to the same fucking destination, those fences are wide apart. You know, it's still pretty easy. But if you're railroading, that's just one straight path.
Yeah.
That's just
Give the
doesn't
illusion
allow
of
for
choice, but
anything.
really get them to the end where you
I
want.
kind of did it to you once, and you didn't know. Because I asked you afterwards. I apologized that I railroaded you, and I explained it to you, and you were like, oh, I had no idea. So basically, I'd given your character an ability, far-seeing. And you...
Every time I use it, I roll really shitty.
You fucking, right off the bat, you started using it and using it
Oh,
well.
yeah, I remember that.
Using it
yeah.
well.
I know exactly what you're
And
talking about.
like right away, I was like, oh, he's knocking out of the park with that fucking far-seeing thing. But there was a murder mystery. And you were like, okay, I looked for the murderer. And I was like, motherfucker, he's going to ruin everything. And the rule is, with far-seeing, is you got to maintain the concentration. And you guys, there was another NPC there that interrupted you. I was like, oh, hey, there's no time for that now. Don't worry about that. And I knew if you got interrupted, you wouldn't be able to do it again.
Right.
And I was totally on the fly, and I kind of felt like a dick about it because, like I gave it to you, and then I kind of didn't. I let you use it, but then I didn't let you use it, whatever.
It's impossible to know what your PC is going to do, no matter what you give them and what you expect is going to happen. Usually, sometimes it goes by the script, but
so like
a lot of times it doesn't.
Basically, what I'm saying is like, just keep it like if you have to do something dickish like what I felt I was doing, like, keep it in game.
Yeah.
Try not to let them know. Like, no, you can't do that because you ruined my fucking story.
Right.
I made the mistake of letting a PC create his own character with a friend of his who had known how to play. So I was like, yeah, go ahead and go for it. So when he came in, he had a complete character sheet. Everything was ready to go. We fucking jumped right into it. He had like a magical cloak, a magical ring, a magical weapon, a magical every fucking thing. He ended up like same level as everybody, but the power granted by
How did he get all
these
that
things,
stuff?
His fucking buddy.
But I
who
mean,
said
like
you could do it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Supposed to
exactly.
give him a certain amount of money to spend on fucking basic
so
shit.
who knows?
You don't get a fuck. You got a cloak of invisibility,
Yeah.
magic elven slippers that let you climb fucking trees.
Well, I ended up doing that same Iron Circle storyline that I was saying. When they got beaten by that, his character got gang raped. Not literally, but
His face. It's like, whoa.
That's a
that,
little excessive.
he started
Freaking
doing
gang
shit with like his fantastic fucking magical items. So the commander that I was controlling, like I said, he was the first character with like an intellectual sort of thing, like this military mind. He sent the people that he had with him right at him. He said, "Go for him. He's a fucking problem." And they flooded him and beat the shit out of him. And he was single-handedly strong enough to hold the rest of them off while they fucking, wrangled that dude up. But once they captured him, I confiscated all of his shit and it was gone. I built it back up from scratch and said, "Fucking all your shit's gone, dude." They sold that shit to the people back out and.
Where's my
That's
stuff?
I don't know.
That's a good point. You have to be careful as a GM. You do it and I do it. We like to give freaking PCs cool fucking items.
Yeah, that's part of the fun.
It's
That
fun.
not-
It's fun.
Might not be necessarily in the book and all that stuff, but it's easier to give someone something cool than take it away.
Yeah.
Like when it becomes overpowered or ridiculous
Right.
or something like that. So like Mark getting that Star Destroyer, that could become a problem if like the campaign kept on going. Like how ridiculous.
Well, that's
it
why I
is.
waited till the end.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like you can't be like, oh, all of a sudden you lose a Star Destroyer. Like
Well, the thing is like, I knew what Mark wanted from his character, and I wanted to reward him because he's been very vigilant and very like he's been all in since day one. Like he's totally into this. And it's like I knew what he wanted, but at the same time, like how do I give him the things he wants without totally making the game unbalanced? Same thing with Charlie. Charlie wanted a Death Star. I gave Charlie a fucking Death Star. At the end, he got his Death Star.
Right.
I fucked with him for 5 years by sending those pictures of like, here's a Death Star, here's a Death Star.
yeah,
That was because he used to bug me, like every game. Hey, can I get a Death Star? Can I get a Death Star? I was like, okay, I'll give you one every month. And I sent him a picture like a joke, right? But at the end, I gave it to him. The that whole fucking thing with the Star Destroyer, like, or even being Mandalore. He wanted to be Mandalore too. Like I knew like once that happened, it's kind of unlimited power. Like there's no balance anymore. Like
Right.
when he became Mandalore, he was like, so I can just send in 20 guys, 100 guys. I'm like, yeah, you're Mandalore, which is a good thing. Well, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but he didn't realize that when you guys were fighting. Otherwise, that would have happened. There would have been fucking 50 Mandalorians in that fucking room taking care of shit, I guess.
Right.
But, like, once he got the Star Destroyer and he did what he did and fucking did an orbital bombardment from the fucking space on the thing we were all standing in, I was just like, I didn't see that coming. Holy shit. Which I thought was a fucking awesome ending. Like, when just to see that whole thing play out, or like in my mind, like, there's this fucking battle going on. Mandalore pulls his fucking people out, or some of his people out. He got out, and then he just orders a bombardment, and our people are still inside, and the building's crashing down around us, and some people are getting out fucking holes in the walls. Some people are in there, still in there, and like, and it came down to your two characters, and your character had been in that place, so it knew like secret ways out, and you were like, and you started making your way towards the towards that secret tunnel, and your character could see through like all the fucking debris, like, oh, there he is. Well, he just disappeared down something, and that I'm gonna follow him, and your character followed him, and I was just like, whoa, what a fucking crazy ending to that thing. Like, if it ends right there, I mean, that's totally fine. Like, or if it goes a little further, like,
it's good either way. Like, if you were watching that movie, you'd be like, oh, I wonder if like us two fight later down the tunnel or something. What happens? Like, I like movies and stuff like that. Not all the time, but they just let you like interpret it how you want it to end. Like, they don't just leave it open.
That's setting up a sequel, is what that.
Yeah,
it's totally setting up a sequel. It's like, oh, you just ended the series. Now we have to do a movie,
Right.
which might happen for you guys.
With as far as the books go, I don't know why they're in quotes, but they are now. If you look at the books, the Star Destroyer doesn't have a price.
Right.
So there's no way to actually buy it in game. Plus, you got to think of, to tell your players or whatever, how many people do you need to fucking run a Star Destroyer?
Right.
Like, how are you going to get that many people to sign on to be like, okay, we're going to run the Star
Logistically,
Destroyer?
from a DM's perspective and even a player's perspective, it's crazy.
Right.
Like, the amount of NPCs you guys accumulated over the 5 years is fucking astronomical. Like, it got to the point where I was just like, I'm out. Here they are. Here's all the fucking people. Deal with it. I can't. I'm one fucking man. Like, I remember there was one game I accidentally did this to Mark. I was like, hey, this needs to happen. This needs to happen. Who's taking care of this? Who's taking care of this? And like, so I'm asking him the first question, and he starts like, okay, let me look. Before he's like done, I'm like, and you need this, and you need this. And he got all frustrated. I kind of felt like a dick, but at the same time, I was just like, no, you know what it's like. There's a lot of shit to keep track of, dude.
Captain, you gotta do it, man.
Yeah, you're the fucking captain. Deal with it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that was. I'm definitely not gonna let the NPC situation get out of hand like I did in this last campaign.
I do like you doing that partly, but even myself as a character, I was like, wow, I got like fucking 5 guys to control aside from just my PC. But I do like the aspect of like giving other NPCs like to the characters to just use to like fly the ship or whatever they want to do with it.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just to have like a
crew,
different, just have a different crew member that's not a PC. But going like 50 deep or something, it's just like, what
We
the
totally
fuck?
went overboard.
Yeah, it was.
We totally went overboard with the NPCs.
But when we friggin', save 100 people on the Trandoshan planet, it's like, what the fuck do we do with all those guys? Like, so you started making up like all these. We didn't even take them all. We took what 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, but still, that was like a lot.
That was a thing that wasn't gonna happen. Like all those, like Mark had somehow acquired the Defiant, that ship, which needed people to run it, and then somehow you guys acquired a bunch of people. It's like, okay, here's a ton of people, like, and now I'm like, oh, now I gotta create 10 people,
Right.
and we got our cook, the Wookiee cook, which I gotta say, no one has ever complained about a hair in the food,
It's
even
impressive.
though
She's a giant hairnet.
she's one big hairnet. Yeah. So what's
Alright, so
left
the-
on that?
Next thing is, As a GM, what do you try to do? How do you build your encounters, world, etc.? You have like general rules and techniques you use every time to make your session or whatever.
I think like one of the other questions kind of touched on this.
Yeah, all these sort of interlinked with each other, but just
I just try to keep it story first. Figure out what makes the characters, your players, tick, and just engage them that way. Fuck with their heads as much as you can. I think that's most important. Be prepared for anything.
right.
Anything can happen. So if somebody says something unorthodox and doesn't fit into your itinerary, try not to railroad them, but let them have some fun. Let them do it if you can.
Right.
Sometimes it's okay. Like, you don't have to say no all the time. Sometimes it's like, okay, you can do that, but it's not going to be easy. Roll that D20. Let's see what you got. I don't know.
Yeah, I do that sometimes as GM, like when someone's asking to do something. Yeah, I'm like, well, you can do that. That's fine. It's open world, blah, 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 but this might happen. You got to think of it this way, too. I'll let you do what you want. I'm just giving you advice. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to be that person as well. I mean, what I usually do when I make a session is I just have a general idea, and I'll go back to the freaking Jedi auction thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that, and then before I knew Kate was going to play, so I was like, okay, I'll just throw her into the auction as well. Okay, there's still those two Duros guys haven't come back. I was like, I want to throw those guys back in.
That was good. I like that, yeah.
Shrock Verdi, the friggin' Nautilin that they knew, he's still missing in action. I'll throw him back in. So that ties all that shit back up.
I like reoccurring shit.
And then the idol thing, I was like, I'll throw that in to just to sort of get all the shit going. You can go all over the place with it. That's what I try to do as much as I can, not make it just cut dry, like this is their first thing, it's the only way to do it, sort of thing. So I try to think of different ways to do it and just build upon it, basically.
I think if it's going to be like one of those like standard, even though we're playing Star Wars or whatever, if it's like a standard dungeon crawl, there are certain things I want to make sure I have there. Like you had touched on earlier, if someone's good at use computer or mechanics or whatever, make sure you could throw a couple of those roles in. Don't just it's there for them to do. Make sure it has some kind of significance. Make sure there's a little something for everybody to do. And try to get some role playing in there or whatnot. Bringing back those characters, like you said, stuff like that. Throwing reoccurring stuff in like that, it kind of like solidifies the world for you. It gives like kind of foundation. Like, oh, there's people. It's just, oh, what a small universe. These guys again. It's gonna make people want to talk to them. Like you said you were gonna get. I need to talk to those dudes.
I remember in I think it's the core book when I was just reading like the GM part of the book. It said have reoccurring characters. Like their example was, I think it was Tatooine or something, but like there's like a bartender at XYZ Cantina. So every time they go back there, they see this bartender, and then later down the road, have his son take over. So they see the world changing and stuff like that, and they see that it's the same people around and all that stuff. So they feel like they're interacting with the world, and it's not just some dry fucking bullshit.
I like the way if somebody comes up with something, Jerry the archaeologist. That wasn't my idea. Like I just said, oh, there are these archaeologists here, and they were working on this or that, and they're excavating the Sith temple. And Charlie's like, oh, I want to offer one of them a job. All right, this is Jerry the archaeologist.
Figure it out, yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I like shit like that. Like, everybody knows Jerry the archaeologust. Yeah, everybody in the group knows him. And he's a fucking...
he's a good character.
Same thing with Gris. I don't know, like, I feel like Gris is a... Gris almost feels like a PC to me.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he's been around long. He's been played by the different characters.
I-9, too. I mean, I-9 was at some point, but...
I-9 was actually a PC,
but I mean,
yeah.
He seems like a integral part of the freaking crew and stuff like that.
Totally, he's indispensable.
Right.
Yeah, he pretty much runs the show for Mandalore now. Yeah. Putting stuff like that, reoccurring stuff, it creates a foundation. It creates your world, gives your world flavor and texture, and it just makes it more real to them. Like, oh yeah, I know this guy. I'm gonna fucking go talk to this guy, you know?
And well, I said about the skills thing, and then you reminded me of it. When you're building encounters, you got to think not everyone's going to be good at combat.
Right.
In the traditional sense. Some people build their characters to be diplomats or skill monkeys or whatever you want to, what else you want to make. So you got to think of those people at least sometimes. Not all, obviously, you can't make everyone happy every encounter, but at least every once in a while make them be able to go talk to some stormtroopers and or whatever the case may be, and being like, if they say the right things and roll good enough on their friggin' charisma check, they'll get past these people instead of trying to fight them.
Yeah.
If they're a skilled monkey, they can close this door in front of the stormtroopers and get away instead of fighting them, or whatever the case may be. But just for examples,
Definitely.
so that's something you gotta think
If you
of
can,
too.
if you can talk your way out of something without having to roll it, that earns XP too.
Right.
You know, like, that's just as important as fucking rolling and beating it. Even though you didn't actually fight the Rancor, you still beat that encounter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did it completely unorthodox and not the way I was expecting, which fucking was better, which got you more XP, I think, than probably would have. I'm usually pretty generous with stuff like that when I see fucking people engaging in role playing and shit like
me
that.
Too, definitely. You have anything to add for the general GM thing? General rules, techniques of how you build your encounters and all the happy stuff?
Rules and techniques.
Well,
Like
just
just in
general,
general?
not rules, like rules, but just like what you have a certain formula that you go by to make your encounters, or you just sort of wing it, or
I winged it the entire time. it got to a point where I was like, I basically went like this. There was the pack that I had gotten was that red box, and the red box had two different things, and it was paperback, basically like a bullshit DM guide and a bullshit player creation thing with a story. Well, the DM one had a story, and we played through the intro, and it was everybody did the same intro for character creation. And we played through, it was like 3 encounters, and we all got the feel for it, but at the end, basically, they helped the dwarf merchant who was attacked. So, and I was like, okay, well, this makes no fucking sense, how all of you helped the same dwarf merchant, so how can we reconcile this? And then, but the thing that got me, what changed everything for me, because no one was gonna, well, no, it's not like no one was gonna offer, but I figured I would do it. I stepped into the DM role for it, as opposed to being a PC, which is what we were all planning to do. And the last line of that DM book is what basically changed my idea of how to do it. At the end of it, they said this dwarf merchant can be just that, a dwarf merchant. You can make him a more important person from a different area. You can fucking make him just completely non-existent after this point in time, and whatever. And then I was like, oh shit, okay, I get it. So I took him and I made him the central character of the entire story. And that's and basically what I did was I broke it up into tiers, like in D&D it was like heroic, paragon, and epic, if I remember correctly. And it was like 1 through 11 was heroic, and then 12 through 20 was epic, and then 21 to 30 was was epic, and paragon was in the middle. And what I figured I would do is the pre-made adventures that I had just from acquiring D&D shit got them up to like level 5 or 6. And then from there I was going to get them to a point where they would hit Paragon tier, and then my story would take over. I was going to destroy the D&D world that I was working off of to build my own story after that. And then, it kind of goes in with what we were saying before. You can take a pre-made thing. You can, like in Star Wars, you can take canon. You can take any kind of timeline. If you're into D&D specifically, like I would probably prefer swords and sorcery, just for a fantasy perspective. Like if I were going to tell a story, I think that's where I would fit a little bit better for storytelling. You can take those pre-existing ones from a D&D world. You could fucking have a realistic medieval Europe feel for it. You could have any kind of thing you want to do, as long as you can make it make sense. So what I like to do is have a story ready and plug in your characters. And then that's pretty much it. So the only real technique I would say that I have is I'm telling the story that I want to fucking read. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's my
Makes sense.
only thing that I have is I'm telling a story that I like. You guys are telling it to me. Like no one knows it. Like they don't know that what they're doing is in fact feeding my fucking interests. But what it's doing is keeping me interested enough to try to keep things interesting for them. Because now I'm like, ooh, this happened. I wonder what happens when I turn the page now. So like even though I'm telling the story, I'm kind of not. I'm just pushing it along to be something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So I guess it's kind of a selfish intention, but that's my only technique is telling a story I fucking want to read. You know, I don't want to sit there and do something if I'm not enjoying, especially with how much work you put in as a DM or
I think
a
that's
GM
true.
in general. You know,
Well, that's going back
I think
to
I just
like,
realized that.
That's going back to what I said earlier about like, as a player, I want to see the GM do as much as I do as far as the game and preparing and stuff like that. So if you see a player really get into it and do all this role playing and all that stuff like that, you feel like almost like an obligation, like, oh, I got to keep up with this guy or this group, and I got to make it even better than the last time if I can, or at least keep it on that level. So I think it's like both parties, so to speak, players and GM, keep the story going.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other. Like you can't function with just one doing it, pulling all the weight. It just doesn't work that way.
No, and and it goes back like the story. We're all telling that story together. Like you're creating the framework, but like without the players, obviously, if you have a story and you don't have players to engage it, it's fucking useless.
Right.
So, I like that collective aspect of it. It's just just the way it is. Don't be. You know what? Don't be afraid to throw in some like tropes. Like a few months ago, you guys remember I threw the Cyrox in there. You guys had to fight that monster on that ship.
Oh yeah.
That was basically an Aliens movie.
Yeah.
You know, like I was
that
like,
musical instrument one you had too was a movie too. Remember that like fucking possessed instrument? We had to find out who was going to assassinate the.
Oh, yeah.
chick that was getting the nasty emails.
yeah,
Or whatever.
the instrument. I mean, I didn't base. It was partly based on the movie Violin with Samuel L. Jackson. So I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it was basically the movie follows the life of this violin, and who made it and how it was made, and basically there was this master. I hope I'm telling the story right, but there was this master violin player.
Spoiler.
Here comes a spoiler. Way back in the day, and his wife died, and he was totally distraught, and he totally went off the fucking deep end, and he drained her blood and made a lacquer or whatever out of her blood, and did a clear coat of blood on the fucking violin. So throughout this movie, you get the impression that this violin is possessed by this woman, and like bad shit happens to people who play this violin. But the funny thing is like everybody who gets to play it is usually pretty fucking awesome at playing it, but they come to this fucking strange demise. So I got the inspiration I got for that character in the it was basically like he played a kind of guitar, and the guitar was possessed, and it was controlling him, and he was actually borderline serial killer. He'd killed some people, and he would plan to kill some more, and the inspiration I got for that instrument that was possessing him was from that movie. So that, I mean, like
Well, it's like going back to reading a different story or a campaign and spinning it your own way how you want to do it.
oh, another cool thing, Master Errol. I based that character off of a character from the Darth Bane books. And you picked up on it right away, and you went, oh, do you mean like this character from that? And I'm like, yes, it's exactly like that. I based him off that. So, yeah, keep that in mind as and that was good, too. Like, when somebody in the group has fucking read the same book you've read, you're like, yeah, it's exactly like that. That's pretty awesome.
I think I was fresh off reading that trilogy too.
Oh, really?
When you had introduced him, I'm like, son of a bitch.
Yeah. I like that character, so I wanted to like, and it fit like a kind of theme that I was going with in the campaign. So I was like, yeah, I'm taking him. He's gonna be, he's gonna live 3,000 years before he actually did.
So what do you guys think of like good group sizes? Like how many people?
I would say 4 players is perfect. No more than 6 people total. I mean, even 6 is kind of a lot.
I'd say 3 to 5. 6, you're really fucking pushing it.
3 to 5 people total, including DM.
No, 3 to 5 PCs.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like 4, I'd say is perfect, but I mean 5 is extremely manageable. 3, you can still tell a pretty good story. It actually probably lends itself to better cohesion with just 3 perspectives as opposed to 4. But anything after 5, it starts to get a bit hairy.
Too many people.
Then you got to really adjust a lot of parameters, like how you structure the games, how they function. Because, like I said, when you've got that grid out and you've got 6 people now going 6 squares, counting their standard action, it's heinous. It gets to be ridiculous.
Makes
that's when you get people
like,
on their phone.
interest.
That's when you get people going to the bathroom and starving, and it's tough.
Yeah, the only problem I have with that many people just sort of happened in our group.
How many do we have now? 6 altogether?
6, yeah.
So you make 7?
I make 7.
Yikes.
Yikes.
Yeah.
The only problem I would have with like
It's a good thing you're not brand new.
with like 3 people, like I would like it if people were consistently could show up all the time. But if 1 or 2 people can't show up, it's just like, okay.
That's cool.
Yeah, I guess.
The thing is, though, too, I mean, it kind of goes with a percentage thing. 3 people can probably commit better than 5 people can commit to a single date. Like, most likely, like, how many games have you had where everyone has shown up? When it was me, Mark, and Charlie, for a little while, we showed up, I think, every damn time.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we started introducing more and more people, some people just stopped showing up. It's like, as it got on, it almost seemed like the percentage went with it. You know, more times than not, one person was less likely to show up. Like, suddenly, now I wouldn't show up for one, or Charlie wouldn't show up for one, or Mark wouldn't show up for one, you know? When it was just the 3 of us, you'd set a date, the 3 of us picked it, and we were good. Now it's, you know, it became, is everyone good for this date? 4 people say yes, 2 people say no, so we're like, all right, we'll go with it anyway, because 4 said yes.
Right.
You know, it's a lot,
Yeah,
I mean, it just makes
Which
sense
sucks,
with the numbers.
but, you know, you gotta deal with it, shit like that.
You do. That's why we try to we talk about this a little bit more, but we try to put the polls up early.
Yeah.
So people can friggin' plan for, you know, weekend or Saturday off.
And it's tough because, especially going back and forth between our games, because you do it every other month, I do it every month. But half of the people in my game are in your game, and vice versa. You know, so it's like, including the DM from my game. You know, so I mean, like, I think it's tougher for us in a way.
Yeah, because you don't want to try to make them go back to back, like my game, then next week is your game.
Right.
Just because it's like,
you want to space them out, definitely.
Sadly, we have families and stuff, and we can't get all our time for friggin' tabletop gaming.
Yeah, life happens. Wives and kids and houses and lawns to mow and.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Soon snow to shovel, all that bullshit.
I can't wait. Still wearing shorts, by the way. It's
Yeah.
December. Still wearing
Wearing
shorts.
pants, I don't
I
believe
live in New England, so it's perfectly normal. What's next on that list?
So what kind of PC do you guys like to play generally? I know you seem like you're going all over the place with you're a Jedi and now you're a drug.
My character, it's like I think with me, it's like the wrestling gimmick thing. It's who you are, kind of cranked up a little bit. So my characters tend to be anti-authoritarian. They end up probably a little aggressive. But for the most part, the entire thing that drives them is the anti-authority. So whatever type of authority exists in that world, my characters will tend to question it, and then it just unfolds from there. Like my Jedi character questions the council because he was raised in like a wartime scenario, and that's something that I feel like I would say it would cause a flaw in his idea. So to me, it's like any character, it would be one or the other. It's either a character who questions everything or a character who commits to something, and that would be pretty much it. But at the same time, it'd still be a questioner. Like if it was like a D&D campaign, I always tended to like paladins For some reason, I just thought it was a great fucking idea. It's like it's a fighter, but it's a fighter with like this supreme purpose. So I thought I thought those were the most intriguing classes, and I always thought it was cool. Like in Baldur's Gate, if you did a bunch of shit that was against the paladin stuff, you'd become a fallen paladin. I always liked the sound of that too. It sounded really cool. And but the point is like you'd still question shit. I'd question why people weren't doing what the fuck I was doing because I'm a paladin. Like this just makes sense. Why are you not following this path? You know, whether it's a paladin or not. Like if you can't fight, you can still support the cause. Why are you not doing it? And it's the same with my characters. Scarro's got a bunch of shit that he's got. Like I said to you, I won't say out loud, but with my Jedi, it was the same way too. It was why would the Council do this when there's a war going on? Why would you ever be a Sith when it's obviously just leading to you? It was just constant questioning and then letting it go from there. It's pretty much the only characters I can play because I can't do anything that's out. Like I said, I wouldn't even finish a video game if it went against the shit that I would do in actuality. It's like it wouldn't make sense to me to do it any other way.
I think for me, I try to emulate, you know, what little good qualities I have in whatever character I'm playing. I think like the first character I played was a wizard, and he kind of skirted. He was kind of like middle of the road, but he ended up like redeeming himself in the end. The second character I played was a kind of like a vampire undead hunter, but he was kind of almost on line with your paladin. I did play a paladin one, and I unintentionally fell to the fallen. I wasn't ready to play a paladin. I was like, oh, we're gonna interrogate this guy? Let me punch him first. Like, I totally fucked it up. But I think the characters I play end up kind of middle of the road or bad, but then try to redeem themselves at some point. Like
that's a good way to put it. It's not questioning. It's more like I think I agree with you on this one. I think we're on the same page. More of like a redemption story in a way, you know.
The my character Quilo, which was a character I played for a while, but then became an NPC and was actually your character's Jedi Master. That character started out as like his backstory was he was a Sith. He was trained by a Sith sword master, but he was like a. But at some point, the sword master was like, "Hey, I know you don't want to do this. Fucking go escape and whatever." And he ended up just going out on his own. At the same time, he didn't want to be a Jedi, but he wanted to kind of be a part of the. He didn't want to admit it to himself at first, but he wanted to be a part of the Jedi. He ended up becoming a Jedi. But I think my characters usually start out either middle of the road or kind of evil, and then try to redeem themselves at some point. I think a lot of time, like I think my character is just. My characters are usually a bad person, but then like something happens that makes them want to do good for some odd reason. I don't know. Not my new character. This one, I think I'm going a different route with Ravenous. Because I don't think Ravenous doesn't have anything to Ravenous has always been a good person. So.
Unless someone steals his.
Huh?
Unless someone steals a golden dinosaur.
I'm a little worried. Like after this conversation, like I'm a little worried about where Ravenous is going. Like, is he? I don't know. We'll see. I hope he. We'll see how it goes with Ravenous. I don't know.
Still time to rein it back in.
Yeah. I don't know. He's fucked up a couple of times. Like the time we all like. There was that thing with the sand people where we did those fight, and then it was down to like one sand person, and then we all just kind of like kicked it. It was like a gang beating up on one dude, and like after the fact, Kaya's character pointed out to me like it was kind of fucked up, and I was just like, oh yeah, I shouldn't do that. Like
Fun.
There has been some occasions like that time and the last game where Ravenous kind of fucked up and let go and didn't. I don't know. We'll see.
That's what's tough with role playing. Like you're just like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna get into it, but it's hard to like step back and think as your character sometimes.
I think I like that Ravenous is a good person, but he's also flawed, And he doesn't always do the right thing, but he's trying to do the right thing. He's trying.
That's right. I think I start out generally like a good, not a good route necessarily, but like to me, good route. So the two characters, like Criv doesn't count, but Auto Aim, like he wanted redemption for his I think his brother or cousin or something got killed by these goblins, so he wanted revenge on the goblins. And then he ended up,
And then took it on everyone else as
and
well.
then he ended up killing like innocent people, cutting his party member's head off, and I always say I didn't fucking make the character to be like that. It just happened. Like it was just like
he went on a dark path.
He just fell on my axe.
I don't know what
He was
happened.
hilarious.
Like it was just
He was so fun.
he went fucking evil like really fucking quick. And even back to what you were talking about, the leaders of the resistance or whatever for the Iron Circle. What's the main guy's name of the Iron Circle?
Red Thorn.
Red Thorn. He's like, oh, you can't shoot that guy way over there in the head with the arrow.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And I was just like, you're fucking challenging like my marksmanship, not thinking who the fuck was under that thing.
Yeah, it was like there were those
Boom.
black cloths like with the rope tied so no one could see anything. Guys just like
Oh,
strapped
you
up
told me
there.
this story.
So I was like the
shit.
fucking guy, and that was the leader of the
Bullseye.
resistance.
It was like the mayor
And I
of
was
the
just
town
like,
and shit.
oh well, you fucking challenged me, you know what I mean?
So
you were
good.
saying I couldn't do it, so whatever.
Sure I can.
And we were part of the resistance before we had that fight with the Iron Circle and all that stuff. So it's just like, so I don't know what the fuck happened to that guy, but it was sort of funny how it happened. I think I played relatively good to gray, I guess, with my Jedi, with Gardic. And the next character I'm not gonna say too much about, but I don't know where they'll go. So I don't know if I really have so far have a
I definitely,
play style. Sort
I
of
definitely do not feel that you're playing Gardic again.
thing. No.
No, you're definitely going a completely different way.
And that's what I wanted to do. Like, not to give too much away, but I didn't want to be. I wanted to have another challenge to myself. Like,
That's
I didn't wanna-
probably the best answer I could think.
I didn't want to be like another
challenge.
good Jedi. Not that he was really, council level good, but I didn't want to go down that route. I wanted to have another experience. So that's what I did.
I think that might be a better answer to what your question was for me too. Is like playing something that would be a challenge, because it ends up like when I think about it, my Jedi, my Rhodian, D&D characters, and my next character in your campaign too. They're all like, if you were gonna say like alignment or something like that, like in the middle of the road, waiting to see where the story takes them. And then you get into character afterwards when basically life hits them in the face and they're like, well, I've got to make these fucking decisions now. Like we started out my Jedi in your game with a blown up master, and I'm hustled undercover into the Mandalorians to try to just like, oh, we got to put you somewhere fucking safe. Here,
Right.
go help these guys out. And she was going, oh, safe, being a operative word, I
Wartime,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah. But we started out in an angry sort of tone, so it led to a sort of a character working his way up from that. But my characters all could kind of go in either direction. They could either go worse than what they've been doing or better than what they've been doing. So I think there's probably a better way to put it as a challenging character, something that kind of makes you think.
Man, I like putting the so-called game on hard mode or whatever, or at least like medium and then getting going, or whatever, metaphor you want to fucking say. So
what's left?
anything else you have add to that stuff?
I'm good.
Okay. House rules. Do you guys have any house rules you guys live by, or?
Yeah, Wookiees automatically get climb. It seems ridiculous for them not to. Yeah, I have some house rules. Basically, the thing about house rules you need to remember is they need to fit, like your not just your campaign, but your group. They need to fit your group. Sometimes things are going to happen in your group that the books don't cover, and you need some kind of something to like govern what's going on there. Like in Saga Edition, it says if a player PC goes to the dark side, the DM takes their character.
Right.
that's fine. I'm not opposed to that, but at the same time, there is certain situations where a character goes to the dark side, and you want to see how it plays out. You want to keep going with it, you
But
know?
if you're playing like a dark side, like campaign or something too.
Right. So, but the problem is it in Saga Edition, basically what governs all the extra powers of a Jedi is the Jedi's moral code, or Jedi code or whatever. If that person goes dark side, it's a super powerful character with no governing system, can go hog wild. So one of my house rules for that is basically if you get a certain amount of dark side points and it gets too close to your will score, you start taking negatives on your abilities, like strength, wisdom, whatever. You can pick them, so like if you get a certain amount that's like within 5 of your will score, 2 of your abilities are going to get a -1 or a -2. I forget exactly what it is. I got it all written out. If you equal your will score, that's another 2 negatives on 2 abilities. If you exceed past your will score by 5, that's another 2 negatives that are going to go on 2 abilities. Now, the reason why I do it this way is because I feel like if you're going to go to the dark side, in all of the canon and legacy and whatever I've seen, when characters go to the dark side, it starts to eat at them physically. It starts to take their toll on them, and they start to fucking wither.
Some other sense
so,
or something goes south.
So for me, there's a mechanical justification for it, because it just, once you go dark side, your character just becomes too fucking powerful. And there's there's a storyline justification for it.
Right.
So it's good for the math. It's good for the story. I think that's one of the, in this campaign, that's one of the most important house rules I've come up with, I think. And I didn't come up with that. That is actually, I got that from the Order 66 podcast from the D20 radio network, which is an awesome podcast, by the way. I've listened to the original Saga version of that. I've listened to fucking almost every episode of it.
Yeah, I think just going about your climbing thing, I think I gave Nautilin swim.
Yeah, when I added that to my house rules when you did that was
it'd probably be the same thing, because one of the PCs in Nautilin.
Mm-hmm.
If someone made a Mon Calamari, I'd probably do the same. Any sort of
or a Quarren, whatever. Yeah.
Any sort of species like that would just make sense to have it. Just like your climb example, or if anyone else came along with something that made sense.
Yeah, like I said, as soon as you came up with it, I was like, well, that's obvious. Yeah, I have to add that to my house rules.
But, man,
unless it was like a Nautilin or a Mon Calamari that grew up on fucking Coruscant and has never seen the inside of a fish tank, or you know what I mean, or a Wookiee who's lived in the city all his fucking life. If it was something like that, with like they made their backstory specific like that, I'm like, oh, then you don't get the climb thing.
I mean, you just gotta watch out for house rules that they're not too powerful.
Exactly.
They're not like breaking the system, and not, especially if it's like race specific. Like Nautilin got 1,000 to swim or something. Like you're just like, what the fuck? If you're a Nautilin, you're just gonna be able to swim around the world 18 times and not come out from air or something like that. So you just gotta watch out for that. But the usual things, like just the +5 or whatever, is usually pretty, or +2, whatever you want to do. But I don't think I have any other specific ones that I can think of, aside from just general, like, tabletop manner, so to speak. But that's just common courtesy sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any other, like, rule-specific things that I come up with. Do you have anything? I know we had a few. I don't remember.
We did have a few, and I can't remember any of them besides the ones that were like, what time do we play, when to, like, how to roll the dice, where to keep them, type of stuff. So like if it falls off, it doesn't count, or some shit like that.
Right.
Who orders pizza? Rotation of like food ordering and shit. That was on.
I'm sorry, I gotta get this in. One of the most important house rules is if Mosby is interrogating a character, at some point during that interrogation, he is going to shoot them in the head. That goes without saying, but I figured I'd just throw that in there just for shits and giggles.
It's very true, though.
It's very true. That is going to happen. It's not necessarily a rule. It's
Or a knife in the leg,
knife in the leg, yeah.
depending on how important the information is.
Yeah.
I just remember, not him, the other Jay character, the first time he played with, one of the first times he played with
Oh,
us.
yeah.
And he saw him interrogating someone. He's like looking at me like, "You just let this happen?" Like me as a Jedi, I'm like, I'm used to it now, but it doesn't really, you know. It's
I'm not
just
going to
like,
get involved.
Yeah, it's a losing battle sort of thing.
I didn't see anything. I saw
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So that was sort of amusing. So do you guys have any tricks of the trade sort of thing to get players to RP roleplay?
I actually I've got some stuff that I want to start trying out more. Like, for instance, let's say you're in a situation, a player character goes into, a building that they've been in before. At that point, I'm going to try and start doing stuff like, okay, well, you've been here before. Describe this to me, Nick. What does it look like in here? It's part of their backstory. Why would I flesh that out?
Right.
I want to try start doing more stuff like that. Just engaging them. What do you see? What is this like from your perspective? Not so much tricks that I have, but stuff I want to try. I've been going on YouTube and looking for stuff to do and whatnot. So one of my tricks is, one of the new things I want to start doing is, like we talked about before, I'm not going to tell you, I'm going to try not to ever tell you no. Yeah, you can do it. Might not be that easy, or,
Right.
whatever, stuff like that. Just to engage them more. Ways to engage them is you can, over some, in-game, stuff like that. When somebody does something in-game, ask them, okay, how exactly did you hit this guy? Or what did you use? Or what happened when it hit this dude? Did it hit his chest or something? You just ask them questions. Ask them what they see, how they see it, stuff like that. Sometimes a person, well, I want to roll for this, and I'm like, okay, well, explain that to me again. Go into a little more detail about exactly what you want to do,
Right.
stuff like that. I think that's a decent way. Some of the things I do to try to get people to engage more and role play more. What about you? You're about to fall asleep.
Just sort of try to trick them into role playing as much as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Someone that is strong in the group at role playing, have them sort of not ask them on the side or something, but be like, oh, this person's doing this. What do you think? And then that person will initiate the role playing, so you don't have to do any of the fucking work.
Mm-hmm.
So Kai is great at role playing. She was trying to push Jake into role playing, and he wasn't having it, but she made the attempt.
Yeah.
So have people do that. Have your own people that are strong with it do it, and obviously, back to the personal stuff. Try to make someone that has kids or has certain beliefs or something like that. Put those in game to make them role play and feel passionate about it. And that's when the role playing will come out. If they feel like they should make a difference or they need to talk to this person a certain way or whatever the case may be. If you make it some generic thing, they're not going to care about it. They're not going to care to be that descriptive about it.
Right.
Also, like you said, the describe, if someone's in the room looking for traps, oh, where are you looking? You're looking under the bed, or
describe to me how you're looking for those traps. And usually you'll get a player going, okay, so I start feeling along the cracks of the floor tiles and the door, and is there any light coming in? You say that to the right person.
The door this way and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's again just tricking them into it.
Oh, you're sneaking up around the corner. Well, how are you sneaking? What are you doing? Are you up against the wall? Are you walking down the alley? Yeah, I remember one time Charlie kind of stuck his head around the corner and there was somebody waiting there with a gun. Who saw that coming?
Yeah. I loved when we were at think it was on Kashyyyk actually. We were infiltrating the Zerka factory or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he was in stealth, and there was a guy looking out the window, and he had the gun
Oh,
right to the
yeah.
fucking window.
You guys were
That was
in the
great.
building, and he had his window, his rifle right to the window, and there was some guy looking in the window to see if
Yeah.
anybody was in there. That dude had no idea that there was a rifle trained in his
That was
head.
fucking great.
One wrong move, you would have been dead. That was hilarious.
That was funny.
Charlie's good for some insanity.
So, is there any tools you use outside, like the actual, like Facebook or anything like that, or any notebooks you keep to
Oh,
get
yeah.
like players interacting between sessions or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely Facebook is a good way to do it. I try to like get people. I mean, I've gotten people to like role play on like basically we both do this. We keep a Facebook page secret just for our group so our people can interact without anybody, like they can role play their characters in between games. You know, like, oh, I didn't go over this in game. I wanna ask your character about this particular subject. They can do that on the Facebook page, and it's also secret. So like, they don't have to worry about anybody seeing it. They can just
Be themselves.
be their
sort of thing,
character. You know, I think that's one of the most important things. Make a group for your make a group page just for your group. Let them role play if they want. I try to post funny things about Star Wars, articles, shit like that. Also, I put a ton of shit there about the game, manuals. And I also use the Facebook page to try to organize when the next game is going to be.
Right.
I think Facebook is an awesome way to help facilitate your game and keep it going, even when you're not playing the game. Like I said, if somebody wants to like ask somebody a question that they missed during the game, they can do it on that Facebook page, and they can do it whenever they want. And then when the person replies, they can do that whenever they want. You know, like there's no time limit. It's like, and they can get it. And it's just a good way to keep things going, I think. Just a good way to keep things rolling. I think Facebook is good for that.
Yeah, and it sort of like saves time actually when people are together. So like me and you want to have a conversation, we can have it on Facebook or through Facebook Messenger or whatever. And instead of taking time in the game, not that, I'm saying don't role play in game, but...
Or even on a phone call.
Right.
Like sometimes the schedules doesn't even match up to where you can have a phone call. So like, okay, I put this down on the Facebook Messenger, and you can respond whenever you have time, you know?
When you're ready,
Shit
yeah.
like that.
So obviously you want to try to get as many people as possible during the game interacting and stuff like that. So if two people are talking for 3 hours straight, it's just going to be like painful. All right. Let's see. You have anything to add to that? Any tools you use or anything?
Well, I'm firmly against social media, so
I know.
I would have to disagree on the Facebook stuff. It is fun though. We had one going when we were playing and shit too. And it was good. The only thing is like some people use it, some people don't, and it's kind of whatever. And I understand like the taking time out of a game to play it, but then how are you defining a game? Because to me, a part of the game is the role playing portion. Whether or not like what can you say on Facebook that you can't say in character in game? To me, it's like, I know you could argue like, well, some people could talk for 3 fucking hours, but like, really, do you have to? We had a whole dialogue about you accusing me of something, not having proof, and me saying you're wrong while not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing one way or the other, and it culminated into an act that happened, and that took fucking, I'd have to say 15 minutes, not even. And
Yeah,
the thing
that went
was,
pretty quick.
And it was good dialogue.
But I've also been part of role playing that's been taking forever.
but standing around going, which tunnel do we go in? That should not be a 3-hour conversation.
No.
And that's where you step in. Is it that's why I'm so against like the whole rule book thing, because when you let it falls in the same category of like when you let people dictate to that extent, you're not playing a game anymore. You're literally just doing 3 hours of deciding what fake tunnel to go down. That's not the game. So you DM it and you push the story. You don't let it go on for 3 hours, and you don't let a rule get in the way. You don't stop for 3 hours to consult a book about how much a ship costs or how much anything they want to do is or what they can and can't do. You just fucking say they can or can't do it, and you do it in a clever way because that's your job as the storyteller or whatever. So to me, like, to make people interact between sessions, I'd rather they didn't. I want to hear what everyone is saying, and I want to say it to everyone so they don't sit there and say. Because I think if you've got the 6 Facebook messages open with 6 different PCs, you've got all that shit to keep track. Because to be honest with you, I'm looking at it like I have a wife, I have 2 kids, I have a house, I have a job, I've got shit that I need to read and study. I don't want to add more to creating a game for people and keep track of fake conversations with my already existing friends that I'm already trying to keep track of their real conversations. Like I have a hard enough time remembering their birthdays, let alone their characters' birthdays or what fucking fake town they came from when they made up to when they learned their sorcery shit. I'd rather know like their work schedule. Like, oh, what are you doing Saturday? You know, that to me is, it's hard enough keeping track of everything else that's actually important as opposed to having a million Facebook conversations with a million fucking things that, I mean, to be honest, I'm making up in the first place. If I can make it up in the first place, I don't need to have 6 people having a conversation about what I've made up in the first place. You know what I mean? It just gets to it. But I mean, at the same time, if it's what you do, it's what you do. It's
Well, that's a
fun.
good argument either way. Like, I don't totally disagree with you. If that's the way you feel, like, oh, I don't want to fucking engage on Facebook, it's just, that's too much. That's totally fine.
Right.
But, like, for overall, I think the Facebook is everybody else. I think it's a good tool, and it works for what it does. It doesn't work for everybody.
If your people are incapable of role-playing in-game, then fucking throw a text message out and let them respond when they can. That's perfectly understandable. But just don't let them role-play. Don't make them role-play.
Never make
answer,
them.
You know
Never
what I mean?
make them role-play on the page. If it's there if they want to. It's only there for them if they want to. I don't ever want to make them role play on the page.
No.
I just want it there in case. Like, oh, I forgot to ask you this question or whatever.
But that's where I feel like a problem can happen because 4 people role play, 2 people don't. Those 4 people's storyline progresses while 2 people just kind of sit and go with the flow. But those 2 people might just be strong role players in general and not either have access or fucking want to participate or whatever. Because I'm not facilitating a sort of lazy DM of being like, it's too much work. Why DM in the first place? What I'm saying is, why go to that much trouble for something that you're already doing? Like that's a house rule right there. Be here at 8. From 8 to 8:30, role play out the last session. You guys did this, you guys did that, you guys did this, here's the recap, role play it out, fucking 9 o'clock, we start sharp, you're back on the encounter, whatever it might be. Because to role play somewhere else, to me, takes role playing out of the game. Now, what are you doing? Are you just combat? Are you just, like, what are you doing in game if not role playing? It's a role playing game. So anything that has to happen conversationally should be happening in game. I don't think it's that complicated to involve to roll out of the game into your life in any other way. I think now it's too much.
I think I've been probably guilty, like trying to get people, not necessarily trying to get people, but hoping everyone in the group role plays at certain instances, like the Nar Shaddaa thing. Like I wanted feedback from everyone about that, and it wasn't necessarily role play; it was feedback. But I think when the role playing outside the game works, is if it's a one-on-one thing. Like if he's asking me something or I'm asking you something, that will take away from the time in the game. That's worth it. If it's just a one-on-one thing, that's worth it to me. To not take away from other people's experience in the game. I mean, a group thing, like a whole like concept, like you said, if 4 of them decide to participate, 2 don't, that doesn't make sense to me, like doing it through there, unless for some reason you only can get up once a year and that helps to make that one time a year.
But I mean,
like,
that's the case in every scenario, though. I don't participate in anybody's Facebook conversations for either campaign, and I don't think a lot of other people do either.
I don't really use Facebook to roleplay.
Well, I'm just saying in general. I'm using us as an example, and to be honest, I'm playing devil's advocate just to go on the opposite side for the conversation because there's obviously good points to it. My thing with it is this though: if like let's say we play a game I'll throw a quick like fucking D&D session out. You're going into a cave to catch a fucking goblin thief who stole your shit. You go in and catch him. But that's where the session ends because it was 12:30 at night, everyone's tired and there's work in the morning, so all of a sudden they're just like, okay, we'll leave it there. But now role-playing happens for 2 months in between games.
Oh, if
When
it
the
was
fuck's it taking place?
if it was a situation like that, I wouldn't allow any role playing. Like if it was like a kind of cliffhanger, oh, you picked that guy. Like if there was like a weird cliffhanger, I wouldn't allow any role playing. That would be a totally different.
That's my thing, because you're setting the stage. So now what you're doing as a DM is if you've got that situation set up and then everyone's like, oh, I'd like to talk about this.
No.
Okay, well, that conversation's happening here. This conversation's happening there. I think it's taking too much away from your life.
For that either.
I
That's
think
like,
I think it's just to kind of like I said before, like if something was missed, just to kind of get it out of the way so we don't have to do it in game and we can concentrate on other shit or whatever. But
it's like the end of the Sith Fortress session or whatever. Like we could have role played that out easily, like on Facebook if we wanted to or something. But I didn't want to do that at all. I wanted it all in game.
Mm-hmm.
And after, I didn't want it this way, but it just happened this way because we ended so late. Like I wanted people to think about what the hell was going on because it was a big part in the campaign.
Yeah.
When it in the long run or whatever. So I wanted everyone to be there and everyone to think about what they wanted to do because it could potentially break up the party. It could have potentially do whatever. But another thing you said was that about the ship just got me thinking when you guys were deciding what to get the ship upgrade as, like what you wanted to upgrade as. That's a good thing to do, like to not have to do during the actual game.
Yeah.
Like if you want to have like a new laser on a ship or something, okay, you have this much money, this is what you can get, blah blah blah. That's a good way to do it too.
I get the point of like when you have stuff like that to do, or even leveling up. I mean, fucking leveling up can take a ton of time out of a game. And when you have shit like, alright, you guys are on a ship. We'll use Star Wars for an example. You guys are on the ship and you're planning this, but you got to upgrade this, you got to do that. I can understand that being a sort of thing. Or like in our case, what do the other characters have to do with us? We're completely separate now. Why take game time out from them? Or why even sit there and role play? Like if a bunch of people have different shit to say to you, you're going to spend the entire time role playing it. But then it all falls down to what kind of game are you playing, because that kind of is the game.
Right.
As in general, like all encompassing wise, like an overall blanket statement, that is the game. You come here to role play. You come here to participate in whatever it might be, whether it's 4 hours spent with this person pulls the DM aside and says my character's intentions are this, I'd like to do this, and then so on and so forth. That kind of goes, I guess it goes with whatever kind of story you're telling to how you get people to interact.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with you on like some things just don't need to be done on the Facebook page, but there are some things you can just get out of the way with that.
So. My thing is this D&D existed before Facebook.
Yeah,
It's been around forever. How did they deal with role playing? You know what I mean? Fucking, there were mail order games where you'd send your shit in to do this type of stuff. So how did that exist, and how was it so much fun when now it's like, now we gotta have fucking Facebook to have a conversation?
Well, on the other
about
end,
it.
there's totally online games now that people play, like D&D, like totally online and stuff like that, like through Skype or whatever. So it's like totally different fucking thing. So that's all
but
digital.
I wonder how they
all
do the
same,
modular.
though, like root wise, like it's still role playing, it's still die
Yeah, but I'm
rolling
just saying
and
that's
shit.
all like that's not face to face at all or anything, which is sort of crazy. But it's some people only have that option, sadly, so they want a game.
We can honestly say that Facebook is good for some things, not so much for other things.
Indeed.
Don't do it if you're not into it.
Right. That's what my wife says.
Anything left on your list?
Not really. The only thing I have left, but it's long cast already, was talking about the game you're creating if you want.
Yeah, it's all right.
But we can probably touch base on that at a different time once this comes closer to completion.
So
this thing basically went from like it was supposed to be like a tabletop discussion to just like the three of us kind of really talking about our games because we love fucking
Yeah,
playing
that's
so
fine.
much. No.
So the last segment of this episode will be a build, right? We're gonna do a
yeah,
build.
we're gonna actually show you guys. We're gonna build some stuff with his battle
systems,
terrain.
terrain.
I'll show you some pictures of my previous Lego builds and some other things you can do, and that'll be the end of this cast, I guess.
Yeah. Live
So
long and
good.
prosper.
What?
As they say in Star Wars, right?
So again, if you guys have anything to add to this discussion or have any show ideas, etc., you can email us at geekinoutpodcast@outlook.com or message us on YouTube or Twitter, etc., etc. So with that, you guys have anything else to add?
Is it at et cetera for
Yes.
Twitter? Okay.
Yeah. That's our,
Make sure you
that's our
spell
tag.
the whole word, etc.,
Yep.
etc., twice.
Indeed.
And that's a wrap. What?
Indeed.com. We're hiring people.
We are?
Yeah, because you're out.
Oh, shit. The pay sucks anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching or listening, whatever you guys are doing. You guys have a good day, night, in between. What is that?
Your Star Wars references are
I go against the
uncanny.
grain.